Buenas and Hafa Day. The Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, Statistics, Research and Planning is calling this public hearing to order. The time is now 9 a.m., Thursday, February 8th, 2024. In compliance with open government law, notices of today's hearing were published in the Guam Daily Post and provided via email to senators, stakeholders, and the local media, and posted to the Governor of Guam's public notices website on February 1st, 2024 for the 5-day notice and February 6th for the 48-hour notice. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague that's here today, Senator Agustin.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. The purpose of this confirmation and public hearing is to hear the testimony on the following agenda items. We will start off this morning at 9 with the hearing testimony on the executive reappointment of Francis A. Castro to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency's Board of Directors, as well as the executive reappointment of Stephen Carrara, Esquire. At 10:30 a.m., we will then proceed with testimony on Bill number 193-37 LS, sponsored by Senator Joe S. Agustin, co-sponsored by Senators Telo T. Taitague, Roy A.B. Quinata, Dwayne T. D. Nicolas. It's an act to add a new Chapter 10 and 11 to Division 1, Title 11 Guam Code Annotated, and add a new Chapter 98 to Division 4, Title 10 Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing electronic nicotine delivery systems, product tax, and licensing, which shall be cited as the EXCISE Act of 2023, and establish a Department of Revenue and Taxation revolving fund and a Guam Memorial Hospital Authority revolving fund. The last item of the agenda is to hear testimony on Bill number 197-37 LS. It was sponsored by the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens by the request of the Congressan Manhoban Wahan, the Guam Youth Congress, in accordance with 2 GCA 7102, an act to add a new Chapter 10 to Title 11 of Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing a vaping product tax and licensing of the retail and wholesale distribution of vaping products, which shall be cited as the Stop Addiction Through Vaping Excise or SAVE Act of 2023. The rules of conduct for today's confirmation hearing. Those that call to testify will be in the order beginning with the government agencies and followed by the person providing testimony, the nominee themselves. Those providing oral testimony will first be recognized by the chair before speaking and begin by stating your name, your organization, position if relevant. Senators will be given an opportunity at the end of each panel to ask questions. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. So now to begin our agenda. On the executive reappointment of Ms. Francis A. Castro to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency's Board of Directors. An overview of the functions of Guam EPA Board of Directors. Generally, there is 9 members appointed by Imagahagan Guahan with the advice and consent of the legislatura. Members shall serve 3 years, except those members that are appointed to fill a vacancy. In those cases, their term expires with the expiration date of that term. Some of the key responsibilities of the Board of Directors is they appoint the administrator, who is not a member of the board or does not have a right to vote, as well as the deputy administrator, who also is not on the board and doesn't have the right to vote, but has to carry out the mandates of the agency, which is really critical. Another important function is the board shall serve as an appellate body to hear notices, any kind of infractions or enforcement actions by any entity, as well as to hear concerns of any citizen who believes that he or she has been aggrieved by an action or decision by the administrator of Guam EPA. Notices of today were sent to the administrator of Guam EPA, as well as the chairman of the board of directors. So at this time, we have the panel before us. If there's anyone here that would like to testify on behalf of the nominees, we welcome you to the table if you just came in. And then we will follow up with the testimony from the nominees themselves. So we have two nominees today. So we can invite you to provide testimony on both if you would like at this time. And then we'll end it with the nominees then speaking, providing their testimony. And please sign in if you haven't done so. Okay, so at this time, I would like to recognize the administrator, Michelle Lastimosa from Guam EPA. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator San Agustin. Good morning, Senator Taitague. I'm very honored today to provide testimony in support of Ms. Fran Castro and Mr. Steve Carrara. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency is pleased with Governor Leon Guerrero's nomination to reappoint Ms. Fran Castro and Mr. Steve Carrara to the Guam EPA Board of Directors, and Guam EPA is in full support of the nominations. I have some brief remarks about Ms. Castro and Mr. Carrara that I'd like to share with you this morning. In July of 2021, we spoke of how Ms. Castro is a proud daughter of the Marianas who has dedicated a great portion of her life towards environmental stewardship, earning distinguished recognition in public service and environmental leadership through her work in developing and executing sound, protective environmental policies in the CNMI during her nearly 20-year tenure with Saipan Division of Environmental Quality and CNMI Bureau of Environment and Coastal Quality. We support her then, and we continue to support her today. Ms. Castro demonstrates balance in her role as an actively engaged board member and her responsibilities as an associate director with the University of Guam Sea Grant, where she lends her expertise and vision to the principles of coral reef resilience, island sustainability, and multicultural diversification in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She continued to broaden her knowledge through continuing education, as illustrated by her recent accomplishment where she earned a professional Master of Environmental Management degree from the Nicolas School of the Environment at Duke University in 2023. Mr. Carrara is our current board vice chair and our most senior board member. Since his initial appointment in 2012, Mr. Carrara has maintained a level of excellence as a board member through his passion for the environment and for the island, which stems from his experiences in the Pacific region for nearly 2 decades. Mr. Carrara has worked with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Palau Environmental Protection Board, and as a result, developed the understanding required to address the unique environmental and cultural issues facing our region. As he seeks his 4th confirmation, we are confident that Mr. Carrara will continue to support the agency and its mission, especially in our efforts to continue modernizing the agency's rules and regulations and increase our compliance and enforcement efforts. Mr. Carrara is an effective communicator and a staunch advocate of the community who prioritizes community concerns and places them at the forefront of board decisions. We appreciate his longevity, and his leadership and continuity is well recognized by our federal counterparts with US EPA. Both Ms. Castro and Mr. Carrara have proven to be great assets to our board, a board comprised of like-minded professionals hailing from the engineering, legal, educational, military, and broadcast media fields whose concerns are supportive and protective of human and environmental health. In the last 3 years with our board, both Ms. Castro and Mr. Carrara have faithfully executed the board's deliberative process and helped shape Guam EPA's policy decisions, which touched upon protection of our groundwater, our state implementation plan for air pollution compliance, and the MCOG's island-wide environmental cleanup program funded by the Recycling Revolving Fund. Priority projects through EPA's State Revolving Fund for GWA, new source reviews for new and modified major sources in the SO2 non-attainment areas, Guam Zero Waste Master Plan, and the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan. Arguably, Ms. Castro's participation on our board exceeded our expectations, especially when you consider that she is a first-termer. Though through 3 terms, Mr. Carrara's dedication and service to Guam through our board is unquestionable. Attendance at board meetings is rarely an issue for either of them. It remains a pleasure to work with Ms. Castro and Mr. Carrara, as they both possess a disposition which assures us of their well-placed concerns for Guam's environment, ensuring that consistent attention is paid towards safe drinking water, solid waste management, air quality, and marine preservation. They both fully understand the level of commitment necessary to serve our community well and recognize that their work with our board is not done. Thank you for this opportunity to share these thoughts with you today. We ask for your favorable consideration of the nominees, and we look forward to their confirmations. Thank you.
Suzu's Masi, Administrator, for that endorsement. Now I'd like to recognize Vanji Lujan for her testimony.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate and speak on behalf of the reappointment of Francis A. Castro to serve as the Board of Directors of Guam EPA. My name's Evangeline Lujan, and although I work for the Guam Waterworks Authority, I'm here as my relationship and work experience with Ms. Fran Castro, because with the University of Guam Sea Grant Board, as well as with the Guam Green Growth. So, half a day, everyone. I've known Ms. Francis or Fran Castro for almost 18 years. I'm honored to support her reappointment to the Board of Guam EPA. Over the years, I've worked alongside Ms. Castro as part of the U.S. Coral Reef Task Force and the Steering Committee on the Micronesia Challenge, which is a regional initiative. Today, we continue to work together as part of the University of Guam's Guam Green Growth Initiative and on the University of Guam Sea Grant Board projects. EPA faces many challenges: the growing need to update outdated regulations and policies, the pressure to approve development projects, regulating emerging contaminants, and enforcing federal and local regulations such as the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water, air pollution permits, different things, just to name a few, all with limited staff and limited budget. Ms. Castro was with CNMI's Bureau of Environmental and Coastal Quality as Director of the Division of Coastal Resource Management. Her experience enables her to understand the complexities of the issues and challenges that EPA staff tackle every day. Ms. Castro is an exceptional professional. She has been involved in the protection and environment her entire career. She has been an advocate for environmental and conservation projects that are based on science and on data. She has a strong desire to ensure that Guam's environment is managed in a sustainable way. She's always someone I can freely discuss issues, from contentious developers who want to build on sensitive areas to how to engage young people in environmental education and outreach. She uses her creativity and technical skills to address the public's concerns related to watershed management, marine resources, coastal resources, coral reef management, non-point source pollution, regulatory compliance, and most recently, climate change. Ms. Castro has been instrumental in the development and exponential growth of the University of Guam Sea Grant Program, as well as being an advocate and great partner as part of our the G3 initiative, and we're both also co-chairs for the Thriving Natural Resources. It has been an honor to be able to recommend Ms. Castro to continue as the board of directors at Guam EPA. She is committed, dedicated, and an exemplary board member. I know she will use her talents and skills to support the mission of EPA, its administrators, managers, and staff. Something that I didn't necessarily write in my testimony, but it's difficult to be on the board of Guam EPA. There's so many issues and so many pressures from so many people to advocate for their areas of concern and conditions. So I thank Fran and Mr. Carrara for their courage to be on this board, because it's not easy. And in fact, there's many people that have been asked to be on the board, but they've turned it down because of the complexity and the problems that that Guam EPA has to deal with on a regular basis. So thank you for your courage and your commitment to the people of Guam and moving Guam EPA in a forward way. Thank you so much. I know that Fran will continue to do great for the environment and the community. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Tsutsuz Masi Vanji for your endorsement as well. I'd just like to recognize Senator Taitague as well as Senator Barnett. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to then recognize Kyle for his testimony.
Hafaday and good morning, Senators. Thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity. You know, I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with all of you in different capacities over the years, and I think the thing that binds not only you but the leadership of the island together is whether it's via entertainment and bettering people's lives, whether it's through our pursuit of the better environment we all deserve, whether it's making sure no one gets left behind, or whether it's making sure that everybody's held to the standard that we all deserve them to be held to. Passion binds all of you in that way, and I can only say the same thing about Ms. Fran Castro. Having the honor to work with her and to see her in action across so many different fields, her passion for our people and for our environment and for the people of the entire Marianas really does take a huge step towards mobilizing people to really take the steps that they can to better our island and our environment. When I first heard that she was on this board for the EPA, I was so grateful because it meant that somebody who stood up for what they believed in, somebody who knew what was good for different facets of the environment that maybe the normal person might not, was going to be in there and able to affect change and to assist our people with growth in so many ways. And I'm glad to say that she definitely has not upset in that way. Her continued push for the betterment of our island and the way that we deal with waste and the way that we preserve our resources and conserve what we have continues to motivate me daily, and is something that you can see growing in the other people that she's able to mentor. So today I'd like to say I strongly support Ms. Fran Castro and her continued part of the Guam EPA board, and I look forward to seeing what she can do further along with the rest of the board, and I hope that you all will consider supporting her in the same way. Thank you.
Tsutsuz Masi, Kyle, for your testimony, and I'd like to also recognize Senator Brown for being here. Thank you. So now, is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony for both the nominees, Fran Castro and Stephen Carrara, at this time, before I ask them to provide their own testimony? Okay, seeing that there's none, I would like to recognize the nominee, Fran Castro, for her testimony. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Holidays and buenas, Senator or Chairwoman Perez, Senator Barnett, Senator San Agustin, Senator Brown, and Senator Taitague. Tsutsuz Masi, and thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I'm very honored and grateful to be here and for being given the opportunity to continue serving the island by working to protect our natural resources for the benefit of our future generations. First, I would like to acknowledge and thank Governor Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenorio for their confidence in reappointing me to the Guam EPA Board. Tsutsuz Masi. I come before you today with immense gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility as I address this esteemed body regarding my reappointment to the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors. It is an honor to have served the people of Guam in this capacity for the past 3 years, and I am humbled by the opportunity to continue contributing to the critical work of environmental stewardship on our island. During my tenure on the Guam EPA Board, I have had the privilege of observing the challenges and opportunities that define our environmental landscape. Notably, I want to highlight the exemplary efforts during the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar, specifically in debris management. I commend Administrator Michelle Lastimosa, Nick Rupley, Glensa Nicolas, and the entire Guam EPA staff for their unwavering dedication, tireless efforts, and sacrifices, including extended hours away from their families during that time. Their hard work in collaboration with other local and federal agencies ensured the proper and timely removal of all storm debris. Despite staffing shortages, they successfully completed this monumental task, playing a crucial role in restoring normalcy and addressing solid waste issues on Guam. Their commitment and resilience during this challenging period exemplify the true spirit of public service and contribute significantly to Guam's recovery. Guam, with its unique biodiversity and delicate ecosystems, demands vigilant oversight and thoughtful policies to ensure a sustainable and resilient future for our community. Together with my esteemed colleagues on the board, we have navigated complex issues working to implement effective regulatory measures and championed initiatives that prioritize environmental protection and public health. This includes the adoption of the 2023 Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan and the Zero Waste Plan, which mandates a comprehensive government and island-wide plan to achieve a 50% reduction in waste by 2035 and 75% by 2045. In seeking your continued support for my reappointment, I affirm my unwavering commitment to upholding the highest standards of environmental governance. I am dedicated to fostering collaboration between government agencies, private sectors, and community stakeholders to address emerging environmental issues. My vision is anchored in a comprehensive approach that balances economic development with the preservation of our natural resources, ensuring a legacy of environmental sustainability for generations to come. As an environmentalist myself, I will advocate for policies that safeguard our air, water, and land while also promoting innovative solutions to address new challenges. I recognize the importance of transparency, public engagement, and inclusivity in the decision-making process, and I am committed to ensuring that the voices of our community members are heard and valued. If reconfirmed, my ongoing priorities will revolve around assisting the agency in securing the necessary resources for growth, specifically focusing on hiring essential staff. Adequate staffing is crucial for the agency's operational effectiveness. With the impending departure of Captain Brian Bearden, the agency finds itself confronted with a significant void that requires filling. I would like to seize this moment to applaud Captain Bearden for his outstanding dedication in bringing crucial matters to the forefront of the board's attention and for providing invaluable guidance. I would also continue to capitalize on the agency's enforcement capabilities to generate revenue. This involves an emphasis on collecting maximum fines where applicable. Addressing staffing challenges is integral to optimizing these enforcement measures. I will work diligently with my colleagues on the board. We will review and strengthen regulations. This includes closing existing gaps and developing new regulations as needed to ensure a robust regulatory framework that aligns with evolving environmental challenges. My commitment to these priorities reflects my dedication to the Guam Environmental Protection Agency's mission and the well-being of our community. I look forward to the opportunity to contribute to the continued growth and effectiveness of the agency. In closing, I humbly ask for your support, and if confirmed, I pledge to uphold the highest ethical standards as a Guam EPA board member. I am committed to maintaining an impartial voice and bringing my experience to the board. I sincerely appreciate the trust bestowed upon me thus far. And serving on the Guam EPA board has really been a privilege, and I'm enthusiastic about continuing this important work with renewed dedication and enthusiasm. Sizus Masi, and thank you for your time, consideration, and continued commitment to safeguarding the well-being of our island home. Thank you.
Sizus Masi, Fran, for that wonderful testimony. At this point, maybe we can offer the floor to Stephen Carrara also for his testimony, and then we'll just have the senators ask questions for both. So Stephen, you're recognized.
Good morning, Senator, and all the senators. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today. Thank you to the governor for the reappointment and the kind words from the administrator and Ms. Lujan on my reappointment. I guess I'm the longest standing member, and I hope I've been helpful to the agency and the staff in addressing all the regulatory issues. And I mean, my goal is to make sure their voice is heard, make sure we make good recommendations to the legislature on legislation and, to address the numerous problems. I'm very proud of the staff that we have, I think, and the board. It's a collaborative effort, and there's a lot of input from everyone from at the meetings, and we hope to continue that. We have a lot of challenges, and I just try to bring a common sense perspective to it and try to address them as they come up. I echo Director Castro's comments here, that we have the same goals, and we want to continue to make sure we have a great place here on Guam. And thank you again for the opportunity to serve, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Carrara. Yeah, I do have questions. First of all, thank you for accepting the reappointment. We definitely need people to serve on the board of directors, and especially with the breadth and depth that you provide, both of you provide. And like you said, Fran Castro, the renewed commitment, I think that really resonated with me, because to really promote environmental standards or even improve environmental standards, you definitely need a staying power and that reevaluation to commit to protecting Guam's environment and its people. Yeah, I just wanted to maybe follow up some questions regarding, I mean, I really appreciate your testimony in regards to modernizing the regulations or updating the regulations. A lot of them have been there in the books for decades. Not to say that they weren't good, but they just need updating, right? And so in regards to regulations, what do you think is the priority at this point to update?
I think that we need to work on the water quality standards for Guam. We recently did a study in southern Guam. It's like a Ridge to Reef framework study, and we've found that many of the sites where we were collecting data, a lot of them had nitrates and other contaminants. So we need to address that, because I think a lot of development and a lot of things that are going on in the upland areas in southern Guam specifically, they don't violate water quality standards. So we have to be a little bit more stringent in our standards. So we need to work with Guam EPA using that data to try to figure out how we can improve the water quality standards for Guam. So.
And, being in, Brian Bearden is no longer in the agency, who would be the one to develop that? Or is it the board that does that?
I believe the agency's water quality section, I'm hoping that they fill Brian's position real soon. I think that they're working on that right now, but I am there to work hand in hand, considering that I was part of that study that was done in southern Guam. So.
And then, PFAS, we're hearing that the proposed rule is going to be finalized. Hopefully that could be incorporated into the water quality standards. Do you see that as, would be a part of that as well?
Yes, absolutely. That can be considered.
Okay, great. And then the other thing is the NGLA, so the Northern Guam Lands Aquifer. What do you think are the biggest challenges to protecting that?
I think we're currently trying to still update the groundwater protection zone map. And I believe that that really needs to be done. I know that WIRI was working on a study to determine, the area that we need to update the map, and also, I just lost my chain of thought. And then also, I think there was a recent bill that was passed to allow septic systems in these lots.
It was introduced, it's not passed.
Oh, sorry, introduced. So I think the agency is a little bit concerned, and I'm concerned too, that it would be open to all lots instead of just the usual decedent lots, quarter acre. So I'm hoping that this body would be able to reconsider that instead of opening it to all homeowners or all lots, to consider the agency's position on it.
Okay. And then the other thing you mentioned was the zero waste.
Correct.
So what do you think can be done to ensure that we reach 50% reduction in Guam's solid waste by 2035?
So yeah, that's a big task, and I think that was just adopted back in November 2023. Yeah, so it's still in its infancy stages, and we do have this program working with the mayor to collect all these abandoned vehicles, white goods, and things like that. But I think maybe a mandatory like household trash collection service, something like that. More education and outreach on the way we can recycle things. I know through the Guam Green Growth, there's a circular economy hub. We should try to take advantage of that initiative to try to divert some of the waste going to the landfill and turning those eligible materials into other products that can be used. So things like that.
Yeah, so when they did their waste characterization study, almost 50% of the waste is biodegradable. So really the composting part of it, like, perhaps with this island-wide collection, I know that's been one of the testimony is that can we include green waste or composting? And I think that would definitely assist in reducing the what's going to the landfill just by the biodegradable, diverting the biodegradable waste, which is really, I believe, is the low-hanging fruit. Of course, we want to divert those non-biodegradables as well, because those last for a long time. But yeah, going to the circular economy is really a good move, but I hope there's some steps that Guam EPA and you as the board of directors can help to advocate for.
Yeah, and I think some of that green waste can really be used in some of the machines over at the Makerspace Hub to turn into like wood plaques, like those name plaques that you have in front of you, different things that can be useful for community.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Castro. I'm going to turn my questions to Stephen Carrara, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues. So, Stephen, thank you so much for accepting the nomination for the 4th term. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I forgot how many it was myself.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have that, historical background and institutional knowledge that you can provide to the other board of directors. So what has been, what have you seen through your terms? Do you see more challenges or different types of challenges, and what was your contribution in overcoming those challenges as a board?
Well, there's always going to be challenges. Guam is not unique in this. Groundwater is an issue for even in New York City. The groundwater is being impacted by various things. In Guam, we have the challenge of the northern aquifer, and we can't afford to get that wrong. As you mentioned, there is pending legislation. We need to emphasize our focus on that, and losing Captain Bearden is something that we're going to have to replace and get that expertise to continue. Over the course of my 4 terms, I think the things have continued on an upward trend. We're addressing those issues. I think we're getting real good quality staff, and even though it's hard to recruit in this environment, I think the agency's doing a great job in that regard. But again, my focus, and I think as the board, when we get into meetings, is on the aquifer, making sure that's taken care of. Our waste programs have continuously improved, and I think as it has overall in the world, we need to focus more on that, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And the outreach programs and that is critically important because it takes a while to adapt. I mean, even in New York, my mother's 93 years old. She segregates everything, can't put the garbage out before 8 o'clock because they don't, or because of rat issues and stuff, and people address to it. So everyone can do it, and we need to do it as well.
Okay, and so the other thing was zero waste. That's one way we can help our aquifer, right, is reducing the amount of waste that we produced, as well as, I think all this illegal dumping too could, also impact, obviously, whatever chemicals are in the abandoned vehicles or, in our waste products. We're finding that a lot of these consumer products have PFAS in them, right? And so it's really critical that, we support those efforts to ensure that it's not being dumped, illegally dumped, or it's properly dumped, in addition to just, reducing our load, because unfortunately we live above our aquifer, right? So anything that we discharge could potentially end up in our drinking water. And like you said, we're seeing trends. Is that what you were saying? We're seeing increases in contaminants. I don't know if I heard you correctly.
Well, I mean, I guess we're finding out PFAS, and there was another contaminant that was mentioned in the last few meetings. It wasn't really, it's not banned anywhere. Yeah, dildrin. And it's never ending. I mean, they
so
just keep
that
coming.
one was banned. That was banned in the 1980s, but for some reason it made a huge, it's showing up again.
I guess it's banned as a product, but I guess not listed. I forget what the exact issue was, but it's not treated or recognized as some. Not regulated, I guess, even though it's banned. It's just an issue one issue that comes up and something we need to be prepared to address and have the mechanisms to address that.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify, it was banned, but the reason why it wasn't regulated is because it was banned, and it was only produced by the U.S. But for some reason, there's high levels in some of our very productive wells, and it's a neurotoxin, so it's very, very dangerous. So we need to address that. I need to follow up with EPA on that one. But so is there? And I heard you're on the board meetings regularly, and that's one of the critical things that we've seen in the past is the board lacking quorum. And that's dangerous because, there's no means to address notice of violations, right? You run the risk of lack of enforcement. So you're accepting the nominations, both of you accepting the nominations is critical for the board to operate and to enforce our laws. So I just want to thank you for accepting this nomination, and I look forward to your confirmation. So I'm going to open up to my colleagues, probably in order of who arrived. Senator San Agustin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just want to thank you, Francis and Steve, for accepting the reappointment. And may God bless you for what you want to do, because I know you got a marketing, environmental master's, and you're a legal beagle, so it seems to work out pretty good.
Thank you, we try.
No, but my concern is that they brought up, how many board members do you have, Michelle, in your EPA?
We have 6.
You have 6?
Out of 9.
6 out of 9? So you need all 6 to be present to have quorum?
That's correct. 5 at
5.
least.
So if you lose one of them, you'll be okay still, right? No, I just thought I'd throw that in. No, I support the two of you being reappointed, okay? Don't get me wrong when I say that, but I do support the two of you. I looked at your background. My only concern is for you, France, you got a 100% owner of Blue Solution. What was that?
That is a consulting company that I started when I first moved to Guam, but I mean, it's just there. I'm not really doing any of that anymore.
Okay,
It was basically helping the Guam Coastal Management Program, like update like their development guidelines and updating their 309 strategy plan for coastal. So.
Okay, the reason why I was asking that because it says on that one page, any financial involvement, 0, but you're 100% owner, LO?
Well, that was...
I just wanted to make sure we understand how the document, what we have in front of us. But I will still support your appointment. I'm just saying is that when I look at a document here, I want to make sure we bring clarity to it. It's no different when I look at Steve's. He has no financial background, but he's the legal beagle for IT&E. Any EPA regulation you create, he's got to be careful on how he decides that. I'm going to ask you, Steve, I hope there's no conflict because both of you, based on the document, says something. And, you know, I'll keep an eye on what's going on, but I just want to make sure. I read the documents I get. You know, I don't just look at it and use it as fire starters. Okay, and I thank you for accepting the reappointment for both of you. And God bless Michelle. She's able to work with the two of you and the rest of them. And you guys just take care. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Taitague, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to my colleagues. And of course, good morning to the nominees that are here, and of course, Director. Good to see you again, as always, and those who are participating today, those who testified earlier. It's so important to exercise your right and voice your voice out to the public. So first and foremost, I thank you for stepping up to the plate to serve our community, to ensure its safety and environment, and other things that come your way, because I'm sure you find those things like not turning a blind eye or being a yes man to someone that does not have the best interest of the people of Guam in mind. So I hope you keep an open mind and open your eyes wide and feel free to see any one of us if you're seeing any kind of, I call shenanigans, my favorite word, going on. I mean, EPA is an agency that we can't afford to turn a blind eye at all. The damage is so devastating, and so I hope you keep that in heart as you serve in your next term. This will be your second term, right, Mrs. Castro? Ms. Castro, okay. I do have a question, though, with regards to conflict of interest. You do work at UOG under the Sea Grant, and I don't know if EPA does have grants, opportunities for any nonprofit organizations or agencies that seek grants from EPA. Do you ever see yourself in a predicament? And if you do, what would you do in that case?
I think I care a lot about the environment, and so I'll do what I need to do to address issues accordingly, and I'm by the book person, so I don't think I'll ever, I don't say I'll ever, but I don't see myself posing any conflicts of interest between my job and serving on the board of Guam EPA. So.
Okay, is there any grant opportunities that that EPA offers? Maybe the director, is there any grants that are given out from EPA to nonprofits or to avail themselves to assist anyone?
So Guam EPA itself does not offer, competitive grants to nonprofit organizations at this time.
Okay.
But certainly there have been occasion where a grant opportunity is available. And then we will partner with, whether it be another government agency or a nonprofit or an educational institution that may benefit from, from the grant. And so long as there's, that partnership with our agency, certainly we have offered letters of support, even with Sea Grant, where they apply for federal grants. We have offered our support to them in applying.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is a huge concern, actually, that a bill that we tried to get passed in the legislature. And I know that you've been in the CNMI. I love Saipan, by the way. You know, always, me too, right? I always try and get out there as much as I can, you know, to visit. But I do notice there was some issues in CNMI with regards to quarrying, you know, the stripping of land over there that's happening. It's a huge concern, right? And being that you have been there and saw, I mean, worked, especially in environment, we tried to pass a bill. It didn't pass for one reason or another. Have you had an opportunity to review, you know, what can happen in Saipan could actually happen in Guam? You don't want to see that happening here. I mean, you learn from mistakes, you know, you just, and now that you're here in Guam to ensure that it doesn't happen here. So are you familiar with the issue on quarrying and how the regulations and guidelines are really not in place to enforce?
So in CNMI, in fact, you asked this question, and I happen to be the person in Saipan that permits like major developments, one of them being quarries. And so we do permit the quarries. I'm not sure why there is no permitting for these types of quarries that are popping up here in Guam, but I think one of the things that we can really do to address that situation is really look at the applications and what they're proposing. And then if it's larger than, you know, 5 acre or 10 acre, then I think it should be subject to permitting.
So I hope that, you know, as sitting on the board, and then you do have this background and the importance of it to lobby this issue, because it's one thing that we allow it, but the enforcement, and if they violate any of these regulations, or where we lack regulations, that we can't enforce anything if there's no regulations. And I appreciate it, Madam Director, that you did attend that and advocated for this big issue. But unfortunately, you know, we have an issue about the quarries right now. So I ask that in your capacity and, you know, your know-how, to please advocate for this. And if there's any senator here who's unsure about what's going on in Saipan, you know, that didn't vote on this bill, that you would talk to them and tell them the repercussions and what's happening in Saipan. I appreciate that if you can do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Will do.
And thank you again for stepping up to the plate. Mr. Carrara, I've seen you many times on different issues, and I'll have to ask you the same question with regard to a conflict of interest. Have you recused yourself at all since you've been on the board?
I think in one instance when they were talking, there were some regulations on underground storage tanks, and that probably was at least 7, 8 years ago. I think I may have provided comments, but I didn't vote on that. But that's the only time I recall ever facing a potential conflict of interest. And just to avoid the appearance, I didn't vote on it for that reason.
Okay. This will be your 4th term, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that you've been sitting there for almost how long?
I guess since 2012. I didn't know if initially if it was...
Over 10 years? Over 10 years,
yeah,
correct.
over 10 years. I didn't know if it was an initial appointment or did I fill someone's seat. I don't recall.
Okay. Well, I've always been a person to, especially if someone has been sitting on a board for over 10 years, to bring to the fact that, do you feel that, you know, when time comes to allow the next generation, new set of eyes, new ideas to come and sit on the board and to step aside and or even advocate for the next generation to come in and sit down on the board? Because, you know, I do realize it's difficult to find people to sit on boards at times. You're taking away from your family, your own work, you know, regiment, and it becomes difficult. And there's certain circumstances where, institutional knowledge is needed. But that knowledge needs to be passed down to the next generation, for them to have the opportunity to bring in that new set of eyes. And I have to tell you, I'm not as techie as the generation, 2-decade generations before, after me, but I just was wondering, what is your take on that, an individual sitting on a board for a long period of time?
Well, I'm glad you raised that. I think there's value in continuity, and I'm also glad we have Director Steve Carbolito, who's the chairman of the board, and so he's kind of a passing of the torch. He's younger than all of us, I think, on the board, and he is an engineer, so I think that provides passing to a new generation, and certainly someone with more expertise. And when somebody's willing to come along, we only have 6 members now, I'm happy to help pass along, transition my knowledge base to whoever comes along.
Well, I appreciate that, knowing that you're out there trying to advocate other individuals, because there is like 3 more vacant seats needed on the board that's open. And I don't know if you updated the website with regards to Dave Dwayne. I'm showing that he's expired on November 23rd as well. So I don't know if he's had his confirmation. I think he did. Dave Dwayne has come up. He hasn't come up for his confirmation yet? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I don't believe he has.
Okay,
no.
So technically you do only have 5. That is, well, if they pass, of course, which I believe you will have your confirmation, but, we need to get them in as right away. There are critical things that need to be addressed at EPA as it's growing. The last thing I have is, so Mr. Carrara, again, thank you for serving. To me, anybody who's, is in retirement age, if you think about it now, we are living longer these days, where you're getting or aging into a new demographics here in population, where 65 is the new 40, so.
I thought it was 60.
I'm going to 65 because I'm 64. Hey, it's the new 40, okay? But still, please encourage anyone that you run into to serve on a board as important as this. Pass on your institutional knowledge as well, Ms. Castro. Pass on that institutional knowledge for the next generation, because, we all would like to retire sooner than later. Lastly, your board minutes. I go on the website and I look at EPA and I can't seem to find your board minutes posted. Maybe are they posted? It needs to be updated? I agree. What happened to transparency? Oh my gosh, you guys. No, it's not online. Is it online? Okay, can I go ahead and have him come up, please, and introduce yourself and what department you're in, please, and then give us your explanation. Why is it not on your website, the board minute meetings?
Yeah, so our website is our website is in a constant state of being updated. I do understand that there was a bill that was passed by Senator Quinata, so we're going to work on addressing the reporting requirements for his public law. So the way I understand it is anything that's going to be reported to the legislature, to the governor, will have to be on our website as well. So once those updates are completed, I can let you know where to find them on the website. But
well, I don't think you need the law to
just
do
1 minute.
that.
If you could just state your name.
Oh,
I'm sorry. My name's Nicolas with Guam EPA.
Yeah. And what is your position, Nikki?
I'm the PIO and the current acting deputy administrator.
Okay.
So the website is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are trying to make sure that we're complying with everything that we have to comply with for the website. But the minutes will be added there, along with in anticipation of Senator Brown's bill being passed. We're also going to put the YouTube videos of all the board meetings on the website as well. So that will be there also.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm disappointed in that. because, you know, if you look at other agencies, that I always look at the website, you know, to look at their board meetings when they have a board, and it's posted on their website. This should have been done a long time. You don't need a law to put that on there. I just really thought that, I was really surprised it's not on here. So can you please do that sooner than later again?
Yes.
Like next week. I'm sure you have copies of it, you know, and as a board, I hope you request that every time to ensure that after every board meeting that it ends with, okay, we're ready to adjourn, but don't forget to post this on the website, okay?
End of the week, it'll be there.
Está. Okay, so this Masi, thank you.
Masi, Senator Taitague. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Manadas to the panel. Good morning, Ms. Michelle and Ms. Francis and Mr. Steve. Thank you for being here and for your desire to serve. I guess I just want to first ask Mrs. Castro to kind of expand on what Senator San Agustin was saying, because I did notice in your financial interest it lists you as the owner 100% of Blue Solutions. And then could you just repeat your statement on the record about this company?
Yeah, so this is when I first moved to Guam. I was unemployed and I opened up an environmental consulting company to assist with some projects here on Guam. While the business license is still open, I no longer do that. And it has nothing to do with any regulatory work. It's mostly updating the development guidance, the guidebook for GCMP and their 309 coastal strategic plan. So.
And so you're saying that although the license is still active for the company itself is not active, and are you currently receiving any contracts from the government of Guam or any entity? Okay.
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Then I guess I just wanted to next ask for both of you, if you could, there's been a lot of conversation about the use of nuclear power and the potential use of nuclear-powered micro-reactors, and I just wanted to ask, as board members, did you have a stance on this issue, one way or another? I know that you described yourself as an environmentalist in your testimony. So just, I guess, if you could state for the record what your stance is, if any, on the usage of nuclear power on Guam and or the nuclear-powered micro-reactors. Thank you.
I don't currently have a stance at the moment. I need to do more in-depth research on what's happening with that issue. I know that it hasn't really come before the board for any discussion. So at this point, I don't really have a stance.
What about in the NMI? Is there a movement for or against the use of this technology, or has it even been discussed?
No discussion. It hasn't really come before us. Okay.
So. Mr. Carrara?
Well, I hope technology catches up to the requirements we need in terms of producing power, whether it's nuclear, biofuel. There's a host of issues. I think everybody needs to keep an open mind about it. And if they could craft a solution that works, I think it's something we need to consider.
Thank you. I next wanted to ask on your thoughts on the failure of the legislature to pass Bill 116-37. I know Senator Taitague had touched on it a little bit, but I know that the agency was heavily involved in providing input to this bill, which again just provided baseline rules and regulations for the operations of mining and quarrying on Guam. And I know that you said in your testimony here today that you permit the quarries in the NMI. So I just wanted to ask both of your thoughts on this bill, because I thought it was interesting that, I think there was even an editorial on it published in the Pacific Daily News. I thought it was interesting that we as a body failed to pass this very critical measure. And I kind of scratched my head on it because we have a couple of members in this body who, anything sustainability, environmental, they're the first ones to run and get their picture taken. But when it comes time to vote on a measure that actually does something for sustainability and environment, sadly, they were on the no side of the issue. So again, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on the failure of us to pass that bill.
I really think it should be maybe revisited and consider maybe as I mentioned earlier, if it's more than 5 acres or more than 10 acres, consider having it be permitted. I don't know which agency that it probably falls under the land management, but that's my thoughts. Only because quarries can, everything, we live on an island, so everything that's up here washes down into the ocean where the reefs are and the fish, and so that would be my take on that.
Mr. Carrara?
Yeah, I don't think it was something that came up before our board meeting, so I don't have any firsthand experience with it from the EPA level, but obviously quarrying involves a lot of chemicals, explosives, and things that are, I think, heavily regulated by the federal government, but obviously something that needs to be addressed locally. And if it comes to, the board level, I'll certainly pay more attention to it. I wasn't involved in the particulars of that legislation, but I think there's a fairly comprehensive regulatory framework, whether additional local regulatory legislative action is required. I guess it's something that's still open for discussion.
What are, in your estimation, some of the negative effects of unregulated quarrying and mining to our island?
Oh, well, I think you get a lot of sediment that washes out into the reef. If there are chemicals involved, which I think they are, that could affect groundwater. From what I understand, just from my personal observations, I haven't seen the negative effects of that here, but obviously it could be. I don't know. I have not personally been involved with that. But it was something obviously we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I would just say that it contributes to all the problems that we're facing. The runoff, the erosion, the polluted beaches. I think these can all be tied to, at some level, quarrying or mining.
Well, if I may add, when we were in Palau and the compact road was being built, and during the rain, the red clay would wash out, and then you'd see from an aerial photo how it just bleached out into the reefs, and it coated the reefs. Not a good thing. It needs to be regulated.
Yeah, and that's why again I was scratching my head on it, because the quarrying and mining, it falls right into the lap of all these issues that we give lip service to, whether it's climate change or sustainability or pollution or erosion. And again, that's what I'm saying. It's got to be real support and more than just a photo op. So I thank you for your presence here today, and I wish you luck in your future service. Sidos Masi. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sidos Masi, Senator Burnett. Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm still thinking about being 40 again with Senator Telo's comments, but I was a deputy administrator of Guam EPA 33 years ago, so I don't think the numbers are going to add up. I would only have been 7. But welcome. Thank you, Francis, for accepting the renomination to the Guam EPA board, and also to you, Mr. Carrara, for your interest once again in wanting to serve. I like the mix that has been proposed. My main concerns about Guam EPA in reflection is, you have about the same staff I did, and yet we see the island has grown tremendously and the need for regulatory enforcement has expanded substantially. But the EPA capability is very limited, and I'm concerned about that. And I think the more recent example we saw in recent years was the Marble Cave project, which I assume you were sitting on the board at the time that happened. Our chairwoman here, Senator Taitague, myself, and Speaker actually walked that project after the incident happened of all the erosion that Guam EPA permitted with regards to the solar farm that was constructed there for the Guam Power Authority. And when I see stuff like that, having worked at the agency and knowing what your regulatory authorities are and responsibilities, I'm taken aback because it tells me Guam EPA in that particular project was sleeping at the wheel. It's one thing when there's illegal activity out there and you guys are catching it. It's another thing when the agency permits a project and then doesn't keep on top of it, especially basic erosion control measures that were not put in place and not properly monitored. And when I get the response that, and we did get the response, we don't have enough personnel. Well, you never have enough personnel. We had to deal with Menengan Hills, the construction of several hotels and golf courses with exactly the same capacity you have now. And, you know, we can't use that as an excuse when you guys are actually permitting a project. If you're permitting a project, then there's an expectation that you're going to be able to go out and do the proper monitoring you need to do and ensure that the contractors are performing to that requirement. Odds are, if they have the opportunity, most will take the shortcut. That's been my experience. I don't know if it's any different with you, Ms. Lastimosa, being there for the last few years, but they just can't help it. I don't know why. I think we know why, because it's cheaper for them to do that, at least in their minds, that they can cut costs by not meeting the environmental standards, because really, who's going to look and who cares? So if Guam EPA is not out there with its eyes and ears performing its responsibility, the odds are fairly good shortcuts are going to be taken, and who's going to be at the short end? Look at the damage to Marbo Cave. You know, where are we today with regards to that? So I wanted to get your feedback, because you're sitting on the board. What consequence, if anything, did you do to your management or to the agency to address that significant, big, in-your-face deficiency of lack of proper regulatory enforcement? What has been done since then to address that?
I know that the cleanup, I think, is already completed in the Marble Cave to an acceptable condition. And as far as staffing, I'll just respond to that, because when I started on this board, the staff was like still the same number as it is today. And one of the reasons for that is that, you know, we're competing with the military, with private sector. We can't even hire like a really good engineer because, you know, they pay more at the military and in other engineering firms, and the government is just, even with the pay raises that they had recently, it still is not attracting people to apply for the jobs. You know, they're really trying, we're really trying. That's kind of one of my goals since the beginning of time, since I started on this board. And they're really, really struggling. I mean, I'm pushing people to go and apply over there, but it's just, even to get people to sit on this board is like very difficult. Like, no one wants it. They just decline all the time. Like, so it's really, it's a tough situation, but you know, we try to do the best that we can do. And hopefully, you know, gonna work with our administrator here that when there's big projects such as the solar farm, yeah, to make sure that we have staff out there, you know, doing inspections and making sure that they're in compliance with the permits. So.
You raise a good point. I mean, it would have been great had an inspector been there and said, you don't have the barricades up here, which resulted in all the silt going into the cave. But on the other hand, the agency did react quickly. The contractor put up some opposition, but quickly folded when they realized they really had no defense to it. The situation, I haven't not personally seen it because I was told not to go look in case we get involved in litigation, and didn't want any of the board members becoming a witness to it. But from what I understand, considerable sums were spent to rectify the problem, and it's been created. I think overall we try to support the agency in meeting these staffing levels, but it's just very hard in this market. The military is drawing people. They pay more. Jesse just left to go, one example, over to the federal contracting agency. So we are thin, and it's a problem that everybody's aware of. And like I said, I wish putting the blinders on, yes, it would have been great if we could have caught that and prevented it from happening. And that's a lesson we need to learn.
As I mentioned, if you can't regulate it, don't permit it. And with all the money that's floating around, there is nothing to prevent Guam EPA from working with this administration, Ms. Lastimosa, you're a member of this administration, to prioritize those positions. I mean, if we can do it at GMH for PIOs, there's no reason you can't facilitate that for key critical positions at Guam EPA to have competitive salaries. We've done that with the utilities. You know, we've done it with other critical operations in this government. But that, to me, is not an excuse for the people you had on staff. they could have still gone out there, those that oversaw that particular project. And there's nothing to have prevented your administrator, you yourself. I've always went out and visited projects because I just didn't want to, expect my staff to come in and inform me in my air-conditioned office and really not know what was going on. So at least I knew where projects were and were they in compliance or not. It just, when you see that type of situation, it tells me that you don't have a handle, not you in perspective, but the agency does not have a handle on proper regulatory enforcement. I think it's pointless if we're going to continue to authorize the construction of these projects that cost millions and millions of dollars, and yet we're going to say, oh, we just don't have the personnel to go out and do our proper enforcement to make sure that the projects that we authorize, we permit, are in compliance. If you can't do that, then stop authorizing them, because then, trust me, it'll bring a lot of attention to your situation rather than, oh, we're the victims and we just don't have the staff and we don't have the capacity and everybody's leaving. End of story. So we don't have to perform. That just doesn't cut it. For the time you're there, and I appreciate your advocacy. I watched you at the last hearing with regards to the whole water quality issue, and you held your own very well. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm glad to see that. I think you need to do that more. Because it's easy to fold, especially when it comes to pressure, political pressure and money in this community. Odds are a lot of people, our own people, will fold. They talk about, oh, we love the environment, we love our island, we want to leave a better island for our children. But do we do it in practice? Is that what decisions get made behind closed doors? Oh, heck no. So I appreciate the fact that to watch you grow in your position as your previous deputy and to move to where you are now and to stand your own in here. I'm pleased to see that. I want to see more of that. I mean, you should have no shame about advocating for your work. And Fran, I tell you, you have the credentials. I've always been impressed, your work. I left EPA before you started up in the Northern Marianas in the environmental work that you were doing. But, to continue to see your growth as well and not just your formal education and the work that you're doing. I see you're still working on your education now in moving forward and continue to advocate. And I'm very pleased with the Sea Grants. Sea Grants used to be administered for Guam and the region out of the University of Hawaii. And to see, even though I'm a graduate there also, but my heart is here. And to see our own ability here to have grown our Sea Grants program and your involvement there is wonderful. And for you to also extend yourself to the board, I'm pleased to see that as well. Mr. Carrara, I don't know you at all. This is the first time maybe I'm really meeting you, but it's not a bad thing. I think having your legal expertise on the board certainly, particularly with regards to these enforcement actions, is a tremendous plus. I really like the mix that I'm seeing. I hope you get more members, but please understand, we are expecting you in your particular role, and certainly Ms. Lastimosa in the authorities, because Guam EPA has extensive authorities. You can bring a project to its knees, and I know I've done it. It can be done. Legally, you have the authority to do it. But if you don't take that and exercise it, and ensure the best interests of the community is at heart, then we end up seeing the situations that we see. And I don't think we want to see that. We need to count on you and your staff at Guam EPA. And I would encourage you that on those critical positions, you need to start bringing that up and raising that concern. Because if it can be done for insignificant positions in this government, and we've seen it, why can't it be done for critical positions that we need that expertise in those people? When I was at Guam EPA, we actually created the position of the territorial hydrogeologist, which is a position Guam EPA has. Has it been filled since Mr. Wirch passed away? No. It has not, and that's very concerning. Of course, we have the expertise at WERI, but being able to have your own in-house hydrogeologist review your projects and monitor them is quite an asset. And so it can be done. And getting the people, money's floating from the skies these days, isn't it? We're so rich. We have so much, $100 million in excess revenue. We love to talk about that. Ooh, our excess revenue. I don't see it going into the most critical positions that we need. And I think Guam EPA, I think we can argue, is one of those critical departments that really need the additional resources and support, because you guys should have doubled or tripled by now. 33 years later, to not see that growth is concerning. So anyway, I appreciate your efforts. I'm glad you're on the board, and please make that extra effort to assert yourself, because the community needs it. The people of Guam need it. And we're up against the politics and the money and the greed. So you got a tough job, but it can be done. You got the power to do it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Masi, Senator Brown. Are there any comments at this time you'd like to make? Okay. So I have seen you in action in regards to, standing up for the environment. And so I thank you. I thank you for that, Administrator, for doing that. As well as, yeah, thank you. And the board, too, for supporting. So we are going to, if there's any, are there anyone else here that would like to provide testimony before we close this hearing? Okay, just to let the public know, the committee will continue to receive written testimony until 4 p.m. Monday, February 12, 2024. Please address all testimony to Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Chairperson of the Committee Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor Procurement, Statistics, Research, and Planning. It can be dropped off at the mailboxes here at the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office@senatorperez.org. Being that there are no others here to testify, the confirmation hearing for both Fran Castro and Stephen Carrara are duly heard. We are going to recess. The time is now 10:15, and Saduas Masi, and have a great day. Thank you. Okay, we're back from recess. Just acknowledge my colleagues that are here today, Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator Telo Taitague, and Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you for being here. And I believe Senator Barnett might be back soon. So we are here to hear testimony on Bill 193-37 LS, sponsored by Senator Joe San Agustin, co-sponsored by Senators Telo T. Taitague, Roy A.B. Quinata, Dwayne T.D. Nicolas, is an act to add a new Chapter 10 and Chapter 11 to Division 1, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, and add a new Chapter 98 to Division 4, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing electronic nicotine delivery systems or ENDS product tax and licensing, which shall be cited as the ENDS excise tax of 2023, and establish a Department of Revenue and Taxation revolving fund and a Guam Memorial Hospital Authority revolving fund. The second item we'll hear will be on Bill 197-37 LS. It was brought forward by the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens at the request of the Congressan Manhoban Guahan, the Guam Youth Congress, in accordance with 2 GCA Section 7102, is an act to add a new Chapter 10 to Title 11 of the Guam Code Annotated relative to establishing a vaping product tax and licensing of the retail and wholesale distribution of vaping products, which shall be cited as the Stop Addiction Through Vaping Excise or SAVE Act of 2023. The rules of conduct for this hearing are as follows. Those who will testify first will be the government agencies, followed by those that confirmed in person or in Zoom in advance with my office by Friday, February 2nd, 2024, or prior to today's hearing, or by the order according to the sign-in sheet. Those attending Zoom will first be recognized by the chairperson before speaking. Videos must remain on, and digital backgrounds are not allowed. Only participants that have confirmed their attendance with my office will be granted access. To ensure all public comments are captured, I ask that all written testimonies be submitted to my staff so copies can be made available and to be included in the committee report. For those providing oral testimony, please state your name, your organization, and position. Senators will be given an opportunity at the end of each panel to ask questions. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance and nature of the agenda, and no personal inference as to character or motive is allowed. Okay, so now we begin our agenda. We are going to hear testimony on Bill 193-37 LS, sponsored by Senator Joe S. San Agustin and co-sponsored by Senators Telo T. Taitague, Roy A.B. Quinata, Dwayne T.D. Nicolas. It's an act to add a new Chapter 10 and Chapter 11 to Division 1, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, and add a new Chapter 98 to Division 4, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing an electronic nicotine delivery systems or ENDS product tax and licensing, which shall be cited as the ENDS Excise Act of 2023, and establish a Department of Revenue and Taxation revolving fund and Guam Memorial Hospital Authority revolving fund. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the sponsor of the bill to provide opening statements. Senator San Agustin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, for decades, Guam has regulated the sale of tobacco products to include those that contain nicotine. In recent years, the landscape of smoking has evolved with the emergence of electronic cigarettes, vape products, and other forms of nicotine delivery system. With the emergence of such products, Guam lacks a comprehensive regulatory framework. This bill not only addresses this gap, but also proposes a sensible taxation system, ensuring that these products contribute to the welfare of our community. As we work on drafting this bill, we met with key industry stakeholders in the business, primarily the owners of local vape shops and the Department of Revenue and Taxation, to discuss the bill and collaborate with them, listening to their concerns and resolving them to ensure that the bill benefits the community as a whole. Initially, this bill solely focused on vape. However, through discussion with business stakeholders, we learned that in order to capture all segments of vape products, we need to expand the definition and utilize the word electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS, as an all-encompassing term. Also, our initial proposal was to tax all end products at above 30%. After much discussion, we concluded that a proposed excess tax on end products would start at 10% and gradually increase to 20% in subsequent years. This would demonstrate a forward-thinking approach to generating additional revenue that will still allow for a tax on ends products but not shock their market in a way that would deter business in its entirety. A reminder, my slogan has always been, we got to keep business in business because it impacts our economy here in Guam. This revenue will be a pivotal in funding crucial sectors of our community, including the Department of Revenue and Taxation and the Guam Memorial Hospital. By establishing a Department of Revenue and Taxation revolving fund, we ensure that resources are readily available for enforcement and administration of this new tax law. Remind the people of Guam, enforcement. Everybody wants to talk about how our minors are affected. If there's no enforcement, you can expect them to continue to be impacted. Simultaneously, the Guam Memorial Hospital Revolving Fund will receive funding for its operation, repair, maintenance, and vendor payments. That's been a discussion on many occasions. GMH needs help. This is another source of funding for them. Currently, the sale of such product when filing for GRT is categorized under the general umbrella of retail sale. However, the establishment of this act will allow the government of Guam to actively record the sale of end products with a separate licensing category. That will be on revenue and tax to establish that under the GRT. In addition, the bill institutes a diligent reporting mechanism to ensure transparency and accountability. Regular reports on expenditures and funds allocation will be submitted, keeping the public and the government informed about the impact of this legislation. I appreciate that we are hearing the bill, Madam Chair, and that I look forward to this being debated in session and hope my colleagues will agree that we need to ensure safe regulations are in place for the benefit of our island people. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator San Agustin. So just invitations of today's public hearing were sent out to, by my office on Thursday, January 29th, to Acting Director Marie Lozama from the Department of Revenue and Taxation, who's here today, Attorney Douglas Moylan from the Attorney General's Office, Director Teresa Areola from the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, who's also here today, Acting Director Peter John Camacho from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, but we do have representatives from that department here as well, and Lily Vinch, Speaker of the 34th Guam Youth Congress. A fiscal note was received from BBMR on November 3rd, 2023. It states that Bill 193-37 proposes to levy a tax on all ends products on Guam with the intention of generating new revenue. The bill establishes the licensing and fee regulations for retail sale of ends products, the enforcement of said regulations, and penalties and fines imposed on violations of said regulations. According to BBMR, current taxes collected for cigarettes, cigars, and other tobacco-related products generate revenue, which is then deposited into the Healthy Futures Fund. And based on the revenue categories, it is unclear whether flavored tobacco products, e-cigarettes, and vaping are taxed in the manner similar to cigarettes, cigars, and other tobacco-related products. Utilizing information from prior fiscal years to obtain data from overall revenues generated for the Healthy Futures Fund, the Bureau notes that the average collection from 2019 to 2022 is estimated at $38.6 million. It further states, however, absent information from the Department of Revenue and Taxation relative to tax collections, specifically from flavored tobacco and tobacco-related products, the Bureau is unable to ascertain the fiscal impact of this proposed legislation. Okay, at this time, we're going to open up the floor to the panel here. Basically, we have enough for both government agencies and members of the public. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Acting Director Marie Lozama for her testimony. Sizuas Masi.
Hafide and good morning, Madam Chair, Senator Barnett, Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator Brown, and Senator Taitague. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 193. We commend the bill as far as its comprehensiveness in defining ends, which we feel would encompass more products. Additionally, we are grateful that it recognizes and allows for a percentage of funding to be given to the agency toward administrative costs and compliance and enforcement efforts should the bill pass. I have with me our Acting Deputy Director, Craig Camacho, and he will go ahead and just kind of provide some brief bullet points on our input as far as the bill is concerned.
All right, thank you, Acting Director. Deputy Director, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Senator Barnett, Senator San Agustin, Senator Brown, and Senator Taitague. Just to add to the Director's testimony, upon review of Bill 193, we do have some recommendations and suggestions. Section 10202, under classes and fees, we recommend increasing the annual retail license from $200 for up to no more than $500. Under Section 102...
sorry, one moment. Were you able to provide your testimony for circulation?
No, ma'am. We're just doing oral testimony. But we can provide that.
Okay.
We can provide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, under Section 10204, term, that section conflicts with Section 10205 under renewal. 10204 indicates that licenses to expire on the 31st day of March. 102-105 indicates renewal before the 30th day of June. DRT recommends licenses expire 1 year after the date for which it was issued or renewed. Additionally, Section 10305, unfit person. It states the director shall not issue a license of any class to any person the director deems unfit to hold a license. DRT recommends removing this section. The language allowing the DRT director to not issue a license to any person whom the director deems unfit is vague and may cause issues and challenges for a denial of a license. Additionally, Section 10306 under application, letter B, upon receipt of an application for a license and the license fee, the director shall investigate whether the applicant and the premises qualify for a license. DRT recommends removing this section as this section does not specify the criteria or the premises to be investigated. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we will reserve questions for later. Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. So at this point, I would like to recognize Director Arreola from the Guam Behavioral Health.
Good morning, Chairperson Perez, Hafide, Senators, and committee members. The Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center submits testimony in support of Bill 193, or the Ends Excess Act of 2023. We commend the author of this bill in its effort to clarify the definition of ends as an all-encompassing tobacco product and to control its presence more strictly in our island. We submit this testimony with recommendations that will align the policy with the public health model, ultimately aiming to end the vaping epidemic among Guam's youth. Generally, we recommend consistent treatment of ends as a tobacco product in terms of stricter licensing and maximum taxation, and a purposeful distribution of the tax proceeds to support programs identified for prevention, intervention, and treatment, i.e. the public health model attributed to ends use. The enforcement of stricter measures to control the presence of electronic nicotine delivery system, or ENDS, on our island is long overdue. According to the most recent Guam epidemiological profile update by our SO, almost 70% of our high school students and 50% of middle school students, that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, reported trying these products at least once, and 1 in 3 of our youth self-reported as vapors. While we at GBWEC have made strides alongside multiple youth-serving partners in our community to integrate prevention education in the classrooms, in the community, and in the homes. The impact of these prevention efforts could return multifold if sound policies are strategically enforced to address the long-term reach and effects of ENDS among youth and families. The most ideal prevention strategy in the form of public policy on ENDS control is the complete ban, demonstrated by the Republic of Palau. As a sovereign nation, Palau chose to protect its people from exploitation by the tobacco industry by removing access points to these hazardous products. We encourage the members of this legislative body to act as boldly as the lawmakers in Palau for the sake of protecting our island's future or our children. However, recognizing that it may not go that way, we propose the following. Utilizing the public health model. Since there are no federal precedents for the universal ban for ENDS, other environmental strategies that our legislators may consider to impact youth substance use rates are as following: imposing maximum taxation, limiting the variety of available products in the market, such as flavored tobacco and ENDS, and enforcing stricter licensing protocols on products. Guam has demonstrated this success multiple times when policies passed by the legislature attributed to the decrease in youth tobacco use from 41% in 1995 to 12% in 2019, according to the Guam SO. These legislations include the launch of the SINOR tobacco retail inspection, tobacco tax increases, the Natasha Act, or prohibited indoor smoking in public places, at bus stops, by public door entrances, in vehicles while minors are present, and the creation of the Healthy Future Fund and Cancer Trust Fund. These policies aid in the decrease of youth tobacco use rates, not only because it controls the availability of such products in our community, but more importantly, because it fueled much-needed services for prevention, intervention, and treatment that are directly caused by tobacco use. We underscore that this latter point is not considered in Bill 193. While we recognize that GMH is in dire need of resources to continue offering quality service, the hospital is only one of multiple agencies in the continuum of healthcare services that are equally necessary for a well-rounded response to the effects of tobacco and ENDS use on individuals, among families, in our community, and throughout our society. These services are locally underfunded programs offered by our agency, the Guam Behavioral Health, as well as the Department of Public Health, Department of Education, Guam Police Department, among others. We strive to keep these programs alive by competing for discretionary federal funds that are short-term, at most lasting for 5 years. Receiving support through local tax proceeds will more effectively sustain these necessary programs in our island. Regarding retail licensing enforcement, JBWIC, alongside Rev and Tax, leads the annual SINOR tobacco retail compliance inspections, which is the government's means to enforce retail licensing policies. While this initiative is focused primarily on tobacco retailers, this past year we included in our inspection the retailers of ENDS, considering the alarming data on youth usage. What we discovered is 73 out of 324 tobacco retailers are also sell ENDS, particularly distributing electronic cigarettes. These retailers include gas stations, grocery stores, mom-and-pop stores, and vape shops. We imagine that this number is an underestimate of the actual count if we were to include other types of ENDS available in the market. The separation of licensing requirements between tobacco and ENDS will not only allow the government to identify the retailers of both types of products, but it will also allow us to enforce retail laws based specifically on the type of product they sell and inspect it twice if necessary. To emphasize the need for stricter and more specific inspection on END's retail compliance, the 2023 SINAR report for Guam shows that almost 40% of recorded violations, that's 5 out of 13, were of sale of the END's product. Without proper response and preventive measures in place, such as those included in Bill 193, we can only expect these violations to continuously increase. We recognize that Bill 193 aims to support retail licensing enforcement that JIPWIC and DRT facilitate by funneling licensed funds to the Youth Tobacco Education and Prevention Fund. Additionally, we recommend that fees for licensure and penalties be set at a higher amount at a control measure to reduce END's use, especially among those who are underage. Number 1, Section 10202, Classes and Fees. Sound licensing laws set an annual licensing fee of no lower than $300 for it to be adequately in funding enforcement efforts. Other states set fees that are much higher. For example, Oregon, $953 annually. New York, at $300 annually for each retail location. For parity among retailers, we suggest that starting the amount of at least $300 for the annual retail license for each retail location. Number 2, Sections 10306 and 10205, License, Application, and Renewal. License application and renewal should require additional information of products being sold or intended to be sold. We suggest including questions on the application form to specifically types of END's products each license intend to sell, distribute to authorized DRT. To number 1, establish and monitor the END's market in Guam. 2, track and prohibit products that are not allowed to be sold in the U.S. market, as identified by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. As of January of 2024, the U.S. FDA has authorized only 45 tobacco products in the country, to include 23 tobacco-flavored ENDs. While there is not an FDA presence in Guam to enforce this federal mandate, including this authority on Bill 193 will prepare our local ENDs product to be in line with federal policy set forth by the U.S. FDA. Additionally, it is equally important to clearly prohibit retail licensures of ENDs through a vending machine as done with tobacco products. Section 10307, Penalties for selling ENDs without a license. Penalties should align with the increasing fees for selling tobacco products without a license. $5,000 for the first violation, $10,000 for the second violation, and not eligible to apply for a license for 2 years after the date of fine assessments. $20,000 for the third or more violations and not eligible to apply for a license for 5 years after the date of fine assessment. Section 10403, Penalties for selling and distributing ENDs to persons under 21. Penalties should align with the increasing fees for selling tobacco to minors. $5,000 for the first violation, $10,000 for the second violation with a suspension of 180 days, $20,000 for the third violation and more, and license should be revoked. The revoked license shall be licensee should be ineligible to apply for a new license for 5 years after the effective date of revocation. The tax proceeds. Regarding tax proceeds, we applaud the senators of the Guam Youth Congress for championing Bill 197 that aims to protect our island's youth from being harmfully targeted by the tobacco industry as a new generation of smokers. We urge the committee to listen to the youth's perspective on how to distribute tax proceeds more effectively into the various community programs that support their health, safety, and well-being of future leaders of our island. As included in Bill 197, tobacco tax funds are appropriated to support primary prevention, intervention, and treatment as a response to impact of high tobacco use rates on the population's health. While tobacco use is declining in the island, ends are on a rise and presents as a replacement tool among tobacco users, and as a novel substance introduced to new generations of smokers that are labeled by the tobacco industry as vapers. The government of Guam can maximize the impact of these taxes if they invested in efforts that have long-term effects on multiple levels: individual, family, community, and our whole society. Funneling funds to support solely the hospital's current need may address the current issue, but it's nothing short of Band-Aid remedy. We recommend adopting the proposed tax proceed distribution on Bill 197 that allows 25% to the Territorial Education Facility Fund, 35% to the Healthy Future Fund, 15% to the Police Reserve Fund, 15% to the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and 10% to the Department of Rev and Tax. Additionally, we highlight that Guam charges among the highest in the nation on tobacco tax rate, $4 on a $9 pack, in comparison to New York at $5.35 and to Puerto Rico at $5.10, Washington, D.C. at $4.50, and Connecticut at $4.35. This is an approximate tax rate of 80% of the product cost. We encourage the committee to mirror this strategy on ends, charging a tax rate of 80% on the ends products instead of the proposed 10%, as it is a proven preventive strategy to reduce access of ends by youth. In conclusion, we recognize that Bill 193 aims to offer a solution in response to the alarming rates of ends used by youth on Guam. We urge that this committee consider our recommendation adjustments to control youth access to ends and to align the proposed solution of this bill to the public health model that will ultimately end the vaping epidemic in Guam. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony.
Director, we will ask questions at the end of the panel, if you can stay for a moment. At this point, I would like to recognize Alex Severio, who is representing, I believe, Department of Public Health. You're recognized.
Thank you, dear Madam Chairwoman, Senator Perez. And Bill 193-37 sponsors Senator San Agustin, Senator Quinata, Senator Barnett, Senator Brown, and Senator Taitague. My name is Alex Silverio, and I am the Acting Health Services Administrator for the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services, Bureau of Non-Communicable Diseases. This testimony is in support of Bill 193-37, which is an act to add a new Chapter 10 and Chapter 11 to Division 1, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, and add a new Chapter 98 to Division 4, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing an electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS product tax and licensing, which shall be cited as the ENDS excise tax of 2023, and will also establish a Department of Revenue and Taxation revolving fund and a Guam Memorial Hospital Authority revolving fund. As noted in Bill 193-37, currently Guam does not have any standardized tax regulations on electronic nicotine delivery systems, or ENDS, within the Guam Code Annotated. Bill 193-37, if passed, could generate new funding for the government of Guam. If passed today, this would require those applying for an annual retail license to pay $200. However, the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services recommends increasing this amount to $500, as the proposed fee of $200 is only cents on the dollar when compared to other states and jurisdictions. Taking a look at the state of California, they charge $1,200 for either retail or wholesale applications. Additionally, the Department of Public Health recommends potential tax revenue to the Healthy Futures Fund rather than the proposed Department of Revenue and Taxation and Guam Memorial Hospital Authority funds. By having potential tax revenue go to the Healthy Futures Fund, it would allow for more funding for more relevant agencies and programs, such as the Tobacco Control and Prevention Program within Department of Public Health. The program currently can provide its participants what's called nicotine replacement therapies, or NRTs. These are nicotine gums or patches for those looking to quit tobacco and nicotine at no cost to them. However, the program only provides participants with these NRTs for only up to 4 weeks. Should the potential tax revenue through this bill go to the Healthy Futures Fund, the Department's Tobacco and Control Program could expand its services further. This could aid in a person's fight against nicotine, such as quitting smoking or nicotine, and this is not a one-day journey. Rather, it is a lifestyle adjustment and a habit to eliminate. Lastly, the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services also recommends that any fines and penalties go to the Department of Revenue and Taxation in order to support enforcement and compliance. In closing, the Department supports Bill 193-37. This proposed legislation could deter individuals from picking up the habit of vaping. It is the Department's goal to prevent nicotine and tobacco addictions, and Bill 193-37 could help us in achieving it. Thank you.
Stos Masi, Alex. Now I'd like to recognize Administrator Lillian Posadas, Perez Posadas from the Guam Memorial Hospital.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and buenas and half-a-day senators, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Roy Quinata, and Senator Joseph Agustin, Senator Brown, and Senator Telo Taitague. My name is Lillian Perez Posadas. On behalf of the GMH, we applaud, commend, support, and thank this legislature for introducing these two bills, given the intent, especially in terms of generating additional funds for the government of Guam and the other agencies through the imposition of licensing fees, penalty fees, and taxes on the sale and wholesale of these nicotine inhalation products. While we support both bills, as both of them are very beneficial, essential, and valuable for the island's economy, as well as further preventing the deterioration of people's health, thus promoting the health of our community, I recommend the merging of the two bills because the ENDS bill, Bill 193, is really comprehensive and it does include vaping. And to minimize, confusion, so hopefully we can just reference one bill that is really then comprehensive and including what the clauses are and provisions that are listed in Bill 197. As a healthcare professional, I commend the bills because of particularly given the end goal, the secondary end goal, as it is clearly and deliberately stated in Bill 197-37, the dangerous and harmful effects of the vaping chemicals and solution inhaled into the lungs of individuals, increasing heightened awareness, education, and other primary prevention programs and activities and services need to be financially supported. And through these bills, through Bill 197 and 193, that will really definitely provide some financial support. From the hospital's perspective, at the tertiary health promotion and prevention level, GMHA plays an extremely vital role given the medical care and treatment management of these individuals who, after years of engaging in such a lifestyle habit of inhaling these harmful chemicals and solutions via an electronic nicotine device or an ENS device, these individuals can and may need emergency care with presenting symptoms such as chest pains that can be a sign of an acute heart attack, that can lead to a massive heart attack or heart damage, and can lead to cardiogenic failure or shock. Resultingly, the individual may need to be intubated and placed on ventilator support. These individuals also can present into the emergency room with cardiovascular disease that can result in elevated high blood pressures, and if uncontrolled, can result in a cerebral vascular accident, commonly known as stroke. These individuals will experience difficulty breathing, shortness of breath, or other acute or chronic obstructive or restrictive respiratory diseases, which can also result in acute respiratory failure, thus requiring intubation and ventilator support. All these conditions and diagnoses and scenarios we typically see at our hospital, and the costs of the medical care and treatment are extremely expensive. So from the hospital perspective, Bill number 193-7 to establish a GMHA revolving fund whereby 60% of the taxes generated will be earmarked specifically for the hospital definitely will be very helpful, and I really truly appreciate that. However, in the bigger scheme of our healthcare system and also in the education and safety, there is an existing fund called Healthy Futures Fund, which is then distributes funds through all these various agencies for, prevention activities. But if the wisdom of this legislature would give GMH more percentage, that would be greatly appreciated and welcomed. I echo and reiterate the comments of Director Arreola and others also here in terms of increasing the fees. The 200 licensing fee, as pointed out by Mr. Alceveria, is really cents. It's a low amount, and so I think it will really just be more beneficial to increase those fees. And that's all I have to say, Madam Speaker and Senators. I'm here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzus Masi. We're going to actually continue with the testimonies, so starting with Cynthia Al, who's on Zoom at this point. So, Cynthia, you're recognized. Yeah, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Honorable Chair, Senator Perez, and committee members, Cynthia Al, Government Relations Director for Hawaii and Guam, on behalf of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Thank you. I will add a different perspective, and thank you again for the committee to have the ability to share the perspective from the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Thank you for the opportunity to oppose, unless amended, Bill number 193-37. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, or ACS-CAN, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy affiliate of the American Cancer Society. We support evidence-based policy and legislative solutions designed to eliminate cancer as a major health problem, investing in comprehensive policies and best practices that strengthen Guam's health infrastructure to prevent youth tobacco use and to help adults addicted to tobacco quit. We ask the legislature to consider our recommendations to improve the bill to address the health of the community. Lung cancer is the cause of about 31% of cancer deaths in males and about 23% of cancer deaths in females in Guam. Cancer mortality data highlights the critical importance of further reducing tobacco use in Guam. By implementing comprehensive policies and best practices, we can reduce the toll of preventable cancer and chronic disease. I'm not going to talk about the data that was shared earlier by some of the departments. We recommend replacing the term electronic nicotine delivery system, ENS, with the term electronic smoking device throughout Bill 193-37. Electronic smoking devices includes a variety of products that may or may not contain nicotine and account for new and emerging products that may be introduced into the market. ACS CAN recommends the model definition developed with the Public Health Law Center of electronic smoking device, and that is found in our written testimony. ACS CAN opposes a section on page 11, 10404, possession of ends by persons under 21 of age. This section criminalizes youth purchase, use, or possession, also known as PUP, of tobacco products, which there is little evidence showing that PUP laws reduce youth smoking. This is not an effective approach to reducing youth tobacco use and inappropriately shift the blame for underage tobacco use from the tobacco industry and retailers to young people. PUP laws unfairly punish and stigmatize youth, many of whom become addicted at a young age because of the tobacco industry's aggressive marketing to kids and other ways such as flavored tobacco products. In this way, PUP laws shift the blame away from the industry's irresponsible marketing to its victims. Tobacco companies and their allies have a history of supporting PUP laws as alternatives to other laws that would produce greater declines in youth smoking. Penalizing youth can divert enforcement officials' attention from stopping retailers from illegally selling tobacco to kids in the first place and present enforcement challenges. Will teachers bear the burden and must turn in students and prosecutors spend their time in court? Rather than treat youth as the wrongdoers, youth access laws should focus on limiting access to tobacco products. Rigorous enforcement of restrictions against sales to persons under 21 is critical to minimizing the accessibility of tobacco products and ultimately reducing youth tobacco use. The most successful youth access programs incorporate routine retailer compliance checks with youth persons under 21 to attempt tobacco purchases. Furthermore, if a person under 21 wanted to quit, they would have to admit that they were doing something wrong. Facing possible criminal charges could ultimately deter youth from seeking help to stop tobacco products. Please amend the bill and strike the entire section 10404, possession of ends by persons under 21 of age. ACS CAN opposes all legislation that would criminalize youth possession, use, or possession, or PUP laws of tobacco products. Furthermore, ACS CAN supports comprehensive tax increases that include a tax increase of $1 or more per pack of cigarettes, with a parallel tax on all other tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. Increasing tobacco taxes is one of the best ways to reduce tobacco use. It is important that tax increases apply to all products, including e-cigarettes, at an equivalent rate to encourage people to quit rather than switch to a cheaper product or product that does not see tax increases, as well as to prevent youth from starting to use any tobacco product. We recommend that the legislature consider amending the bill to include a $1 per pack cigarette tax increase for all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, to be taxed at that rate, parallel to the tax on cigarettes. This will also make it easier for the tax department and retailers to comply with the new tax, as well as to see full health and economic benefits of the tax increase. We recommend that there should not be a graduated tax introduction. To parallel a $1 pack cigarette tax increase for Guam, the recommendation would be to consider an 80% of wholesale tax on other tobacco products. If the legislature considers taxing e-cigarettes as a percent of the retail price as proposed in the bill, 35% retail tax for e-cigarettes. Consider using tobacco tax revenues, including new e-cigarette tax revenues, for tobacco prevention and cessation programs according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention best practices. Tobacco is still the #1 cause of preventable death nationwide, yet the current funding levels for tobacco programs is not sufficient to prevent and address tobacco-related disparities. Preventing youth and young adults from becoming addicted to tobacco products and helping individuals who currently use these products quit requires sustained and increased funding in comprehensive tobacco control programs. We urge you to consider our recommendations and to amend the bill accordingly. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this important matter.
Masi, Cynthia. Next we have on the list, we have Bistra Mediola. You're recognized.
Hafide, good morning, Senators. First and foremost, I want to apologize for wearing sunshades. Rest assured, I'm not trying to be cool or anything. I'm recovering from LASIK, so bright light really hurts my head. So that wanted to know that. Boy, where do I start? As you know, Senators, this is not my first time appearing in front of you, trying to bring more light to a very complex issue. And let me ask you this question. Now that we're in tax season and we're discussing taxation, when it comes to April 15 and you do your own taxes, are you going to seek the services of a tax professional or are you going to seek the doctor? Because a lot of the testimony here is coming from public health on issue that is far more complex than just health. It also does deal with economy and the economic repercussions when we're dealing with higher taxation or lower taxation. This is a very complex issue that has been discussed in numerous papers around the globe, and I wanted to bring to you today one specific study that has been widely publicized in the circles of taxation and creating a tobacco tax specific policy. That's Tobacconomics, and there's also a study that I will be forwarding to you. It's by the Tax Foundation. These two nonprofit organizations do concur that ends are not the same as cigarettes. As I presented last week to some of you, we cannot tax a product that is not identical to a cigarette. So if you can take a look at my presentation that I believe you might have a copy, it's very obvious why these two products are not the same. Because this is a technological product, this is not a tobacco product as per the current definition, including the federal tax code. Because tobacco, it is a product that is a cured and processed leaf of the tobacco plant, whereas the end product is a completely different product that does not burn, it does not have a tobacco leaf. Very important to know, it does contain nicotine, but there are other things on the market that also contain the same substance, nicotine, such as the NRT, which is the nicotine replacement therapy. So, yes, ends do contain nicotine, but they're not a tobacco cigarette. That's why we cannot consider that product to be taxed at the same rate as the known cancer-causing product, the tobacco cigarette. Furthermore, when we examine a lot of the scientific evidence on which product causes more harm, there is an emerging data that's updated every year. And last week, I presented to this committee over 100 pages report with 232 citations from medical literature proving what I've been claiming for the last 12 months. ENDS is a substitute for the tobacco cigarette because it's a less harmful alternative. And this body should consider that this product will prevent further death and disease. And this may prevent further strain on our hospital when we spread the news that this is an alternative and not as dangerous as a tobacco cigarette product. Currently, in 2022, the CDC reported that 12.1% of our adult over 21 population is a user of ENDS. In this current economy and inflation, do we want to place even a higher burden on that taxpayer that is trying to stay away from a much, much, much more harmful product? Absolutely not. So I completely disagree that this body should tax this product same as tobacco for all the reasons that I just stated. If you can take a look at the graph that I presented to you, even the FDA is considering this product to be on a less continuum of risk. And we start from the bottom, where is the nicotine replacement therapy, and this is a study by Nutt and others, published in 2014. I mean, picture is worth 1,000 words. You can see for yourself, where are we on the continuum of risk? So can we tax the ENDS products the same as tobacco? Absolutely not. It's the same as if we should start taxing any nicotine products, such as the patches, the lozenges. We're not taxing these products because they basically have been developed by the pharmaceutical industry, and they're being sold at a much higher price. ENDS was invented by a consumer and a community of people who were trying to kick the habit, and it became popular because it was inexpensive. And this is also a very important factor when we're trying to convince people to quit smoking. For example, last week I also stated that there is this device out there on the market, it's called Nicotrol, that works and looks exactly like an ENDS product, but it costs $648. And there was a suggestion that we treat these products through a prescription model like in Australia, which will burden even more the healthcare system, because people will either now go to the doctor to get a prescription, or the doctor may not even prescribe it, because there are those instances right now that Australians are dealing with. So when we are trying to create this policy that treats that product same as tobacco, let's examine all the evidence and data. And I have been sending you information page after page, and I will continue sending you, because I am advocating for all those people out there that are former smokers, like me, that were successfully able to quit the cigarette smoking through ENDS. You heard the personal stories of people. It's very important that you listen to these people. It's very important that you read all the commentary out there. The mere suggestion that we could enact a ban on this product, listen and see the commentary of the people that spoke. And do consider the 4,165 signatures that we collected in opposition of such a ban. But speaking about this bill, I'm in full support of the bill. Why? Because it addresses the issue that we have been seeing and experiencing as a community. Our children today are being brought up and raised to not face serious consequences for delinquency. I see it in my community, you see it in your community, you see it in the school system. Children are becoming more daring and bold because they're not being penalized for delinquent behavior. We have it on the current law. It is illegal to be in possession of tobacco, let alone use of tobacco. So when that minor child is breaking the law and we don't have a strengthened penalty for that behavior, we're raising a generation of future criminal activity occurring more and more. It is called the broken window theory in American psychology. And what that means is that when we start with the minor offenses and we let them be unpunished promptly and accordingly, we have an escalating avalanche of criminal activity in the future. This is why I disagree with the American Cancer Society, because there is evidence. When I hear claims that no, there is no evidence, I'm just baffled, because there's a lot of evidence. American Psychological Association, court appearances can stem teen smoking study finds. What the study found was the mere appearance in the court alone appeared to be an amazing deterrent. And let me give you an example. 28.4% of the teens reported using less tobacco than they did before police citation, and 15.5% noted that they had not used tobacco at all since being cited. 2 months later, 29.3% of the sample reported less tobacco use following their court appearance, and 27.8% said they had not used tobacco since. So yes, that's one. Cracking down on youth tobacco may influence other substances users. Same findings. Penalties do work. Tobacco possession, use, and purchase laws and penalties in Minnesota, enforcement, tobacco diversion programs, and youth awareness, another study. Our adolescent data provides some support for the PUP laws as a potential tobacco control strategy. People are finding that, yes, strengthened laws do work. Kids learn how to behave, but we adults need to show them that there is consequence for their delinquency. There is also another one that I will be presenting to you in my written testimony. Randomized trial evaluating tobacco possession, use, and purchase laws in the U.S., again, in support of the PUP laws. Minor tobacco possession law, violation and intentions to smoke, implication for tobacco control, same findings. Impact study of tobacco possession law enforcement in Florida. These are law enforcement people. Same findings. Yes, there is a lot of evidence. So let's examine the data as a whole. And I'm happy to provide you that. Because we all know that we're losing a culture that has helped this island to endure so much calamity, beginning from Spanish colonial times to today. Because there was a culture of respect the elders and behave, because I'm going to tillick your ear if you don't. Are we going to raise a future generation that doesn't know how to behave? Are we going to allow even more? Of course not. Because we're parents, we're responsible adults. And when teen, minors, and even adults allow breaking of the law, we need to deal with that accordingly. We need to strengthen our laws. The bill addresses many facets of the complex problems that we're seeing today with the youth use of tobacco. I'm not going to bore you with the graphs because you can see for yourself. Numbers don't lie. The numbers are there. You can see it for yourself. It's a much more complex problem. So let me give you a quick example from the second presentation that I printed out for you today, where we're seeing a country like Qatar that has a full ban of electronic cigarettes, and yet 11% of the kids reported they're using. How do you get their hands on that product? We don't know. Why? Because there's a black market for it. Now, in a country like the Philippines, in that country, the youth tobacco use as a general category is far lesser than what we have here. Yet, about 77% of children over there can access tobacco and can buy tobacco, and they're reporting that. That's the WHO data that I plugged in for you to see. And yet, that country where access is widely available for children through various sources, they're not doing it. Why? Well, let me give an example why. We all laugh at those funny memes on YouTube that shows the Asian mom, how mom deals with kids at home. Maybe strong parenting and good values at home are to be considered. So let's be like the Philippines. And again, I want to mention the other study that we presented last week that also supports the theory that we need to deal with the adults that are facilitating tobacco possession and use. Very important, because children cannot waltz into a store and freely purchase unless that retailer is in violation. And let me put it again. The Sinai report reported a drop in the compliance rate, but we're still within the 94 percentile. Let me say that all violations that happen regarding ENDS products purchased never occurred in a vape store, which is a strictly adult 21 and only store. We enforce the law. We need to deal with the people that actually break the law. And I want them to also face the stiffer penalties, because this bill makes it a felony. And people need to know that if you are abusing a child, because when you provide that product to a kid on the street or at home, you're abusing the child. Where's the CPS? We have to deal with this in a comprehensive but sound and clear manner. Because the products that are out there reserved for adults will be there, regardless, whether or not we ban them, whether or not we tax them heavily. They will be there, and people will be turning to some form of, behavior to cope with whatever's happening out at work or at home. We all know that. But let's also deal with the people that are out there that are destroying this community, because as I mentioned, the broken window theory is actually a testament of what we're seeing today. And if we don't show this community that we will punish the offenders, then we better pack up and go somewhere else, because there's not going to be any community left within 20 years. So thank you for listening to me. And yes, again, I want to reiterate, I am in full support of this bill as is, unamended, and I'm in complete disagreement with the SAVE Act because it treats vapes as tobacco. And I said, there is strong evidence, there's a lot of information for you out there that we will provide you the proof that these two are not the same, and they can never be the same and shouldn't be taxed the same, because there is a continuum of risk. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for any questions at a later point.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Mendiola. So we have Theseus, if you can provide your testimony.
Hi, good morning, guys. Sorry, senators. It's not often that I come here, more recently now than ever. I come to you here as a parent, as a small business owner, and just wanted to share my feelings and my sentiments. I do support this bill in its entirety. I believe that it does solve a lot of the problems that we have been bringing up. I run most of the day-to-day operations with my staff on a regular basis. I get all the reports from my staff when adults are found to try to bring in youth into our stores. Honestly, it breaks my heart to see something like that, because to me that is child abuse. I have two sons, an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old. I was brought up in the old Antigua way, where we used to actually get beat up and spanked when we were younger. Probably not so legal now, but you know, as a parent now, they call us a Gen X that grew up. When people say, well, you know, it should be, you know, we shouldn't be punishing the kids, this and that, I'm like, okay, well, we can't punish our kids the same way as the old folks used to do to us. Well, I'm a testament to, as far as the way I raise up my kids. You know, a lot of people here would probably say my kids are probably the most at-risk kids on island. And the reason being is because I am a vape shop owner, okay? I have samples that I have that are brought into my house, which we do have an office. I don't lock it, and some people might say, well, you're leaving those things out for these kids. Well, no, I don't have a leash on my children. They have a very good relationship and understanding with them. And the reason why I would kind of rebuttal that was, does anybody here have medication, over-the-counter medication from our doctors, liquor, alcohol? We put them in our fridge and we put them on our medicine cabinets, but we don't put them under lock and key. I'm a firm believer that, you know, you can discipline your kids to a certain degree, where, you know, I never lifted a hand on my sons. And they know very full well the repercussions. Now, if I fail at that and my kids do get in trouble for something at school, whether it's bringing in ends or illegal products or products that are for adults, Lord God willing, yes, I will have them be punished to the fullest extent of the law if this happens. But my son, I've been in this industry for a very long time. Actually, I was a converted smoker to vapor many years ago, when we used to actually build our devices. We would modify them, made from flashlights, dive lights. The 18650 battery is actually a dive light. And the nichrome wire and stainless steel wire is actually all readily available, and the cotton. So is the e-liquid and flavoring. This is what some people would say black market, but honestly, this was the invention of the industry. It was just a bunch of hobbyists that had Facebook groups or Instagram groups, and we got together and we started creating it. I got into this as a consumer, first of all, only because I wanted to get away from the smoke and the tar. The nicotine I can deal as far as with the addiction of being addicted to nicotine, but if I could reduce the amount of harm that was happening to me, I was a 2-pack of smoker a day. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I was 3 to 4. If you drink alcohol, you might understand what I'm talking about. And I completely quit that. It's been about 7-8 years, and I've been completely smoke-free, cigarette-free.
Excuse me, Mr. Mendiola, if you can stick to the merits of the bill.
I'm sorry. I would disagree with the American Cancer Society as far as changing the names of it with the smoke. They use the terminology smoke. I would leave it as ends because it is a nicotine delivery system. The smoke, I believe, does not define the vaping product, and we should use the government standards on that. I do support the punishments, whether it's for businesses, bad actors in the businesses that are selling to youth. We are very strict in that matter, and you have an open door policy with our business. If the government needs any kind of proof, video evidence, all our customers are all under a system, our POS system. You have to be registered in order to purchase. So if there's any event that there's a CPS issue with parents that are giving it to minors, we will cooperate with the government as much as we can to thwart that. And then, like Bishra had mentioned, the harm should equate, the tax should equate to the harm. And for most smokers, we're trying to reduce our harm. That's the reason why we're doing that. It's not the best, but 50% is better than none. That's it.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to have questions for the panel. First of all, I'd like to recognize Senator Quinata, too, as well. So apparently, this is important. I mean, everybody here agrees. Those that signed up agreed to support the bill, I believe, except for the American Cancer Society. They oppose the bill as is written without any changes. And so, obviously, there's a gap in law in that there's regulation of end products. There's definitely a gap in regards to that. And so what this bill does, it takes from Title 11, Chapter 6. I see it uses that as the base, and then it adds on to the, electronic nicotine devices, electronic cigarettes. Apparently, there is a departure amongst all of you as regards to, who gets what, who gets the taxes, and how to divvy it up. And I'm sure that's something we can probably resolve, right? That's something that needs to be resolved. Depending, I think, the way the bill is written, it does kind of leave out the prevention aspect. Like there's less money going towards prevention, more towards enforcement, and then treatment when it comes to the hospital. So, my thinking is that prevention is really critical. You say it's more cost effective to prevent the usage than to treat the illness. I mean, that's said many times over. I think that's pretty apparent. And so, yeah, I think that it's important to include more resources towards the prevention aspect. Currently in law, there's, Department of Revenue and Taxation is not included in the funding, from what I could tell, in this Tobacco Control Act. There wasn't any funding included. And so that's definitely another gap that this bill addresses. So I just want to go back to your testimony, Department of Revenue and Taxation. So you recommended deletion of certain sections. If you can repeat that again and maybe explain why you, slowly, because we don't have a copy in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, we have notes. Make them a copy. Yeah, for Bill 193, just like the other departments have testified regarding Section 102, classes and fees, we recommend increasing the annual retail license from $200 anywhere up to $500, no more than $500. Of course, we're hoping to get some of that fees to help us at Rev and Tax with the compliance and enforcement side, and then of course the other departments if they get their percentage as well. That's Section 102.002 under classes and fees. Our second recommendation, it appears that Section 102.04 under term indicates that the licenses Rev and Tax will be issuing expire on the 31st day of March. Right after that, on Section 102.05 indicates that the licenses have to be renewed before the 30th day of June. So I'm not sure if the author can maybe clarify that. But DRT is recommending rather have the licensees expire 1 year after the date for which it was issued or it was renewed. having that one expiration date's really going to tie up the department, and one day they're all getting clearances, they're all going to be lining up to renew, so that's one of the reasons why. And then on our third recommendation is under section 10305. It identifies an unfit person, and that the director shall not issue a license of any class to any person the director deems unfit to hold a license. I mean, just that term, it's very vague. We recommend removing it. I myself, I'm not able to say who's unfit or not, more so the director to apply for this type of license. And then our fourth recommendation would be under section 10306, under the application process, letter B. Upon receipt of an application for a license and the license fee, the director shall investigate whether the applicant and the premises qualify for a license. The reason why DRT is recommending we remove this section is the section does not specify the criteria of the premises or the applicant that we're going to be investigating. I mean, unlike the Alcohol Beverage Control Act, it's specific on the requirements of the applicant and the premises. That's what the inspectors will go out and verify under qualified premises. This section doesn't identify that criteria.
Would you be open to maybe qualifying rather than just deleting that section out? Because there's other bills that are also that have been heard proposing to suspend licenses for a second offense, and then revoking licenses for a third offense. So that would probably qualify as being unfit.
Are you referring to the unfit person or the premises?
Well, it could go under the section 103, 106 application. So before, again, you want, before giving a license or granting a license, that retailer has not violated any of the laws. I think this is a critical part of the bill as a check to make sure that before granting a license that they didn't comply.
Of course, we can leave it in if we can provide the criteria that the inspectors are going to be reviewing to process on the application, like you mentioned, because we do currently that's being done upon renewal. There is a database that reflects which retail outlets have tobacco violations under the SINAR program on the retail outlets. So we can, if we can remove qualify or maybe just the premises, and we can do the background investigation on the applicant, whether they have previous violations or pending violations that we're considering.
Okay, so yeah, I think that would be my suggestion, is to keep that in but qualify it a little bit more. In regards to the funding, so the way the bill is written, a big portion of the funding is going to go, at least the excise tax, right, is going to DRT. What do you envision that being used for?
Well, we believe that will help us with administrative costs and also on the compliance and enforcement aspects. So administrative, we're going to have to obviously go back and, kind of redo our current GRT3 form to include the ENDS products. And then, of course, with regard to compliance and enforcement, just any of the operations, that we would carry out.
Were you given an estimate of how much that would be? So 40% of the excise tax, is there an estimate amount of money that you're expecting?
Actually, no, we didn't, we didn't calculate that. Truth be told, for this body, we are just grateful to be getting something, because quite frequently, we actually don't get any funding for anything that's handed down. So.
Okay, yeah, I agree that there has to be some money towards compliance. For sure, there's a lack of it. And I know going to Director Areola, I know in some of your testimony, you provided some information regarding the cost, right? The cost of the signer inspections. And that I think in the recent, I think last year, it was $73,000 for the compliance checks. Is that correct? And that was only for one inspection. And I guess best practices is to have at least 2 unannounced, but of course, the more inspections, probably the better.
The more inspections, the better, of course, but I do want to, just for the record, because we have a fellow vape business owner here, that the signer does not go into adult-only vape shops. So just so everyone knows, that is not, we're not, the compliance effort does not do the checks and balances for the vape shops for adult only, because we use underage surveillance kids, and that is not allowed. So just so you know, we're not checking on the vape shops. And we do appreciate that there's adult-only signs and everything, of course. But also, you need to know that the compliance signer does not include the vape shops. And, you know, my fellow colleagues at Tax can attest to that as well. Yes, senators, the more compliance, of course, the better. Minimum 1, it should be at least 2. Quarterly would be even better, because we keep the violators in check, and that's really what we want. We want to make sure that those who are selling to those that should not be purchasing should be, called out. And so, yes, just so you know, the vape shops are not part of the compliance of the SINAR program.
Sorry, DCS, did you have a response?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to clarify too on the bill, the differences on the tax. I believe on this bill right now, it's a 10 to 20% on the second year, and this is based on the retail sales versus what's being done right now with cigarettes. It's a 40%, but it's on wholesale. So the differences on that obviously are going to be very vast. And then the other thing too, and I just wanted to clarify, I'm not the author of the bill, but I wanted to just verify, just that way you guys understand that when we're talking about the percentages, it's based on the retail sale, not in the wholesale. And then the other thing too is the accounting. So from our POS side, it'll be a tax that is going to be labeled on the receipt, which will actually help DRT better account for the monies that are actually going to them. As you guys know, we've had problems in the past with cigarette tax not being paid. That was a big issue. So this, I think, will also help clarify and clean that up, the numbers.
Oh, yes, Director?
Yeah, and I apologize. I think I sent a note to you that I need to leave at 12 noon. But I do want to say that in addition to the fact that the SINAR program that DRT and Guam Behavioral Health execute at least once a year, we're hoping at least twice, if not more, but also it costs money. The fact that the SINAR does not include the vape shops, it also doesn't, there is no evidence that not all vape shops are in true compliance. So that too is on the flip side of not monitoring the vape shops. So as much as we appreciate the 18, the shops or the businesses that say no 18 or below, we all know that it's all over. It's in front of when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to cigarettes, it's all over. It's practically in the cashier's face, and still we find people who are non-compliant, businesses who are non-compliant, and those things are dealt with accordingly. So as much as we appreciate the fact that the business owners do as much as they can to ensure that their businesses are properly labeled, we can't really, on the compliance side, really determine whether there are no violations at all in those shops that are not being visited with the compliance program.
Before
I
you
think
leave,
that's a fair statement.
yeah, before you leave, I do have a couple questions, and maybe I can ask my colleagues to ask you questions. So what would be the ideal way as far as compliance and enforcement? And as well as, yeah, what would you see as the ideal outcome of the taxation
the more
bill?
compliance visits, the better. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We're always going to have those folks who are going to try to. I mean, that's just a behavior and an upbringing issue. I think that was touched earlier. And you'll always have people who are wanting to break the law or get that product that are told you can't have that product. But the best thing would be to have more than one compliance sign-our program a year. And that way, we really, the more compliance, the more chances to fine-tune the strategies and the approaches that we can help businesses stay in business, because I know that's the author's intention, but also make sure that those who are in violation get the stiff penalties and pay for it. So, you know, you're asking what is it going to take? It's going to take more than one sign-our program a year.
Okay, in regards to the PUP law, so what is your stance on that?
With regards to?
Basically criminalizing youth.
Well, you know, our youth are a growing mind. And if those of us who can remember when we were youth, I personally do not believe that kids should be criminalized. I think they need to be taught and they need to be disciplined. There's a big difference putting kids in incarceration and providing them some kind of punishment where they'll learn the lesson. The nation is going across, the whole nation is going on removing less kids in incarceration and more in behavioral programs and cessation programs, if it's, you know, drug, alcohol, tobacco, whatever. I am not for putting kids in jail. Mini jail, DYA, period. They don't learn the lesson. They just feel, we're just increasing the number of adult people in incarceration. The key is we need to recognize that children's minds are still growing. They're testing the system. They're kids. Are you kidding me? I think we've all tried to do things when we were kids to see how far we go. But it really is about the proper discipline program when they do get caught breaking the law. How are they properly disciplined? I think. Okay. So, well, the fine should not be for the children. The fine should be for the adults, the parents. You know, when the saying about missing children, there's no missing children, there's missing parents that are not keeping an eye on their kids. And so, yeah, the fine should be to the parents, because if the parents are giving the kids the money to buy the illegal stuff they should not be buying, then they're the ones that should be punished.
Okay, let me
Fortunately, we can't, there's no, you know, people have children and they didn't take a class of how to be a proper parent. So we're dealing with that today, right? In many aspects in behavior.
Sorry, she has to go, so I'm gonna open up to my colleagues for
Sorry.
her. Okay, so, do you want to go last still? Yeah. Okay, Senator Taitague, for Director Arreola, I know she has to go.
For Director Arreola, I do know you have you're pressed for time, so I'll try and make this as quick as possible. You actually answered one of the questions at the very end. For me, I think that enforcement is first and foremost, and the funding should go to enforcement first. You prevent it. It's being proactive. And then after that, education and programs to help individuals to wean them off or, should be next. But I really think enforcement is key and number one. First, with penalty and fines. You put these penalties and fines in place, you have no enforcement, well, then why would you even, like Senator Brown said earlier, why even give a permit? Why even give a license if you can't enforce it? So I thank you for that. I think you hit something on the nail when you said instead of, criminalizing the kids, that they go into behavioral programs, the side of the road picking up trash, the shame, walk of shame,
Thank you. We were just discussing a little bit here.
Yeah.
What are some of those programs? The fine is not enough. Mm-hmm. You need to find the parent who should be controlling and making sure that their child is raised properly and do the right thing and make the right choices. And second of all, how do you discipline? I talked about discipline. The discipline, I say everybody should pick up trash forever. There's enough trash in this island. Get them out there. Trust me, if the kid doesn't want to be out in the hot, they're not going to break the law. They're not going to disobey their parents. Community service. And I'm not talking sit at a mayor's office or a department's office and answer phones in a comfortable aircon. I'm talking about painting bus stops that they vandalize. And I'm talking about picking up trash
on the side of
the road in the hot sun,
parks,
so that they can realize how difficult it is and that there's consequence. The idea is teaching kids there's consequence to breaking the law, and not necessarily putting them in jail, but also teaching the parent that they need to have better upbringing of their children. They need to teach their children how to make better choices.
Okay. The other question I had real quick, Director, you know that when we increased the tax, it was about in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, 2009, when we increased the tobacco tax, we found a huge fall in our Healthy Futures funds. And we were also seeing less people smoking because the cost was too much for them. So vaping is going down that street now. We're heading in that direction. We tax them. We're going to probably, see a little bit more to the Healthy Futures Fund. But do you agree that since we have taxed tobacco, I know you mentioned all the other things, the Natasha Act and everything like that, that's already in play. But do you see that it would actually lessen those who are vaping right now to not vape because the tax is going to cost more money to do so?
Okay.
Just like tobacco.
So in this industry, we use terminology very loosely, and we need to be very specific. There are certain vape devices that don't have any nicotine. My concern, and I think everyone's concern, is the nicotine in the ENDS product. There are ENDS products that don't have nicotine, and honestly, I don't care. If you want to be around a smoke cloud, that's fine. But my concern is the products that have nicotine. That's what we need to, that's the addictive product.
Right.
That's the addictive ingredient. So, in fairness for the shops, the businesses that are selling non-nicotine devices, that's not really fair to have a blanket. There are devices that have nicotine, and that's what myself, public health, and I think everyone really here is concerned about, and making sure that our kids are not addicted to the ingredient of nicotine, no matter what it is, whether it's a cigarette or tobacco leaf or a product that you puff. It doesn't matter. What matters is making sure that the addictive ingredient nicotine doesn't get into the hands of our kids.
Okay. And thank you so much for that. And, I have a couple more questions, but I think you answered most of them. I think, the devices are also made to help wean people off nicotine too, just like the patch, the gum, but they cost quite a bit. And I know there's a program that offers 4 months, but after that, we had a testimony from Janela Carrara, who actually came and testified how the device actually helped her get off nicotine, by weaning her off slowly.
In a proper program.
Yeah. And then there's also those individuals who've taken advantage of the 4-month period in which they can get the nicotine gum or the patch, but that actually was not enough for them. And at the end, because it's so expensive, to help them wean them off, ended up going back to tobacco. But anyways, I know you have to go, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, and you know my number, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
I
you,
appreciate it.
Director.
My apologies again
thank
for
you
having to leave.
for your testimony. Senator Taitague, do you want any other questions from this panel? Because Director's leaving at the moment.
Okay, I'm sorry if my colleagues had any other questions to bleed into your time, but I think, she's always available. We can give her a call. I do have when I heard your testimony, Director Posadas, when you mentioned, the Healthy Futures Fund, and using that funding to go into that area, well, we definitely know it needs the help. It's been declining ever since. And it does provide an avenue of sharing the wealth, per se, And I agree with that, actually, and I'm going to talk to the author of the legislation that we may just do that and send it to the Healthy Futures Fund. And that way, I know you can still avail yourself of that funding, but other areas and departments that have programs to assist for educational purposes. My concern is to ensure that Rev and Tax, though, receives some funding. I'm tired of us passing legislation that is mandated on these agencies with no funding. Here is a funding source. We found a funding source, and I don't want to see that stripped away. Because like I said, first and foremost, to me, enforcement is number one. Number one. Programs and education will come next. But if we can stop them at the gate, from getting in, then that's what we need to do. I don't see us, it was brought up about taxes, increasing taxes to even higher than what we authored in this legislation. It's ridiculous. We're just taxing them out of business. And I don't think that's an option. Increasing the funds from, licensures fees. I get it. You think if we, keep making it higher, then it'll deter people from doing it. But that's not what we're doing here. When we look at Colorado, Oregon, or all those other states, you're seeing a demographics of a population of, millions of people. So the revenue coming out from that business is obviously going to be a whole lot more than a shop here on Guam with only 150,000 people. So why do we want to give, charge them more of a fee of $1,200 or $2,000 when we don't have that population to support that? So I think the amount that we indicated here is an amount that is conducive to our island, our population, not California with millions, or Oregon, or any other state that's placed in this. So I'd rather keep it the way it is on that amount. The broken window scenario, thank you for bringing that up. I'm still waiting for the book that says, that's given to us on how to raise our children to be perfect kids in every way. Please, somebody send me that book. I mean, there's tons of them out there, I think we all prayed when we had our children, God, please send me that book, we can't control them. And, we give them the wings to fly, and they do what they want. I mean, by the age of 9, they start questioning our authority at the age of 9. But what we can do is continue to bring those education promos in place. It brought in one of your things that you said. And thank you, by the way, Brish. I know you had some eye issues, some surgery on your eye. Thank you for being here and providing all these, it's good information and data that's needed. It talks about parenting. You had put, education and strict parenting practices are key. That's the end of your presentation, and it's so true. But what we don't want to do is take away the fact that we have the ability to choose as individuals, as adults. So that being said, Madam Chair, I thank you for the opportunity, and please, thank you so much for being here to testify. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and certainly thank you to all of you that have come and provide testimony. I mean, this is it's the hope that in implementing the tax that we're going to be able to get the revenue from it to again go back and educate and address the health issues out in our community. At the same time, how are we going to properly address enforcement? I mean, I'm a non-smoker, a lifelong non-smoker. I don't have any interest in vaping. It has no appeal to me, like I don't drink coffee. I don't know. It's just things you like to do and things you don't like to do. But yes, there are members of our community that like to smoke, and now the vape has become the in thing. And we're also seeing the concerns that have been raised, the amount of vapes that are confiscated by students in our school system. So it does tell you that the enforcement of that, or the fact that our children are getting their hands on vape, is a concern. And up front, I know there's been the other bill concerning flavored vapes. I'm not going to vote for that bill because, again, to what degree does the government get into our lives? You know, it's a balance. How do we address that? Hopefully, we can get more people to stop smoking because of the serious health issues that are involved in it. We have, I mean, my father died from lung cancer, a combination of, for years that he smoked, but he was also exposed during his career in the military to Agent Orange and other things, because he worked on the old Navy ships for a long time. So I have experienced firsthand what it's like to go through it. There are people that never smoke that get lung cancer as well. But the process and the suffering that an individual has to go through in their passing is something you never want to experience. I mean, there's challenges with anyone who's passing for whatever ailment they may have. But you realize the challenges, especially from a health situation. And when someone's diagnosed with lung cancer, on average, most people don't live beyond 5 years. Very small percentage survive. My father, fortunately, lived for 18 years after he was diagnosed and went through surgery, but it's a small percentage. And so how do we get the awareness and the education out there in addition to, you know, people, grown adults, having their choices of what they want to do in their lives? And for some, vaping provides an alternative to that. I think we prefer the non-nicotine version so that it doesn't affect their health and welfare. But we have to put some standards in place, and my biggest concern is the enforcement aspect on our children. You're an adult, and it's something that is legal. I mean, you know, I don't drink much because I'd probably be an alcoholic if I did. Have enough stress to want to drink something away every day. But we've allowed, these things are allowed in our community, and it's how do we properly regulate them for the safety, particularly of our young people that have and are exposed to this. And the more you tell someone not to do something, especially kids, what do they want to do? They want to do it. They want to find a way around it. And yet somehow more and more of our children are getting their hands on this. And this is what we need to decide. You know, I understand the concern at one end. Should we, you know, put the burden on the parents to be responsible if they're underage? Or do we also put a penalty for the child? How do we balance that? I think that's the challenge, but I think we need to put it in place, and as much as possible, if adults are making bad choices that are adversely affecting our children, then by all means the adult should be held responsible, but there has to be consequence. If we don't, we're going to continue to see the situation of our young people. When I was growing up, I'm sure many of you, it was the in thing to smoke. You know, you saw it in movies, it was very glamorous. I mean, you were the Marlboro man, you know, you're the Marlboro man riding out on the range, and you're attractive, and everyone wanted to be you. And of course, those images are embedded in our mind and our thinking, and it encouraged a lot of young people to smoke. And over time, we've seen what the consequence is. While not everyone has said, like not everyone, people never smoked in their lives end up with lung cancer. Nevertheless, a higher percentage is there for those that do. So, I mean, any education awareness we can get out there, we welcome. But definitely, we have to look at what the consequences are of how do we protect our children, and yet how do we allow adults to make choices if they choose to make while these things are legal. So that's pretty much how I look at it. I don't have any questions. I appreciate the input and testimony that's been provided today, and certainly I'm sure as we debate this bill, hopefully we can come up with a balance to address these issues. And also, like I said, how do we get that education awareness out there to protect our children? With that, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Quinata, you're recognized.
I just wanted to thank the panel for coming out today. To each and every one of you taking time to come out and, you know, voice your opinions and give us some insight on certain details. Really appreciate it, and I thank you guys again for your time. Other than that, Madam Chair, I have nothing further.
Senator San Agustin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, as I listen to the panel and I listen to comments of everyone, I hear about the Healthy Future Funds. You know, being a former revenue and tax compliance supervisor and a former police officer, I tend to differ a little bit with the Healthy Future Funds. And the reason why I bring this up is because it was mentioned earlier that maybe about 3 or 4 years ago we raised the price of cigarette. I was one of the senators that voted for that. And I smoke. And at that time, the price of cigarette was only, what, $4.99 or $5.99. Then it's supposed to jump only to $6.99. But if you went to the stores, it jumped $3. I said to myself, where did the other $2 come from? And the funny part is that it's not like the price of goods went up at the shipyard. Nothing changed, other than the price of goods went up. And then on the Healthy Future Funds, you know, I understand where everyone's coming from with this. You need to spread it out. Really? Take $1 and spread it and tell me how much you get. Hardly anything. Don't kid yourself that let's spread 100 or 100,000. Really? How much is the impact? The focus was fortunately, I happen to be from revenue and tax. I know what it takes to do compliance. Sure, behavioral was involved when they do the screening. Whoopee-doo. But did we close any stores? We find them. Maybe we just need to change it. We find you, we close you. No, we don't just give you a $1,000 fine or whatever. No, you're closed for the month. And I'll tell you what, that store will not sell that brand no more, that cigarette. And maybe we need to restrict the sale of vape. It must be only the vape shops. Not an open market, not a pay less, not a cost you less, nowhere else. Control it and be done with it. Sure, some people said, you mean you're denying me an opportunity? No, if you want to open a vape shop, go open up one. You want to apply for a license, go apply for one. No, you can't. And that's the biggest problem we had at Revenue and Tax. Is because it's like all of my colleagues said, why don't we reduce the tax on medicine and food? Really? Have you done business before and look at the GRT? Do they separate food? Do they separate medicine? Right now with this bill, it's going to create that program to identify vape, the end product. And my concern is that I'm not too worried about behavioral and public health, because why? Remember, I'm the budget guy. You get a lot of federal money. GMH doesn't. The biggest issues and our concerns today is helping to fix GMH. That's been the biggest concern for months, or years even. And then at the same token, the agency that brings in 80% or 90% of the revenue of GovGuam is not given extra money to do what they need to do. This upcoming budget, if they come to me and they say, I need money to do enforcement and compliance, I'm going to say, why not? And then the rest of you are going to say, well, I need money. Well, what have you done with your federal grants that you got? And why haven't you hired the people you should have hired? Revenue and Tax can't hire people because why? They don't have enough money. And then we say at the same token, why isn't things fixed at GMH? Because there's no money, so we're finding a source to give them money. Sure, and if everybody wants, put on Healthy Future Fund, but we annotate on the bill, Healthy Future Fund specifically to GMH and to revenue tax. The end results are still the same. You know, as agencies ask for money, they need to focus on, don't wait for a bill, but for what? Come up with your own bill. Come up with your own source of revenue. Because I can imagine among my other colleagues, when they sit down, they start generating bills and drafting bills, they talk to vendors, they talk to businesses, they talk to agencies and ask the question, could this help you? And the agency they speak to are the agencies they see need help. And remember where my office is located, public health is in the same building with me. So yeah, I know where public health is coming from. But you know what, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no problem. If we need to make adjustment on the bill, fine, so be it. And I believe that if a minor's caught, you find out who the adult that gave that minor that end product, and you prosecute. And when I say prosecute, it says, you know, like they mentioned, raise the fine, Maybe change the misdemeanor to felony? Don't necessarily mean put him in incarceration, the parent. No, community service, that sounds great. I like to see more kids and more adults for violating the law, picking up trash, painting bus stops, helping clean the schools. Help, maybe go up to GMH and help clean out some of the areas they can't afford to get somebody to hire to do it. You know, some people seem to forget that they brought it up before, is that it takes a community to raise a child. The community needs to get involved to take care of themselves. And until such time we get everybody to participate, quit blaming the government. The government can only do so much. And they're going to reach a point where this is what you paid for. And when anyone wants to compare California and other states, don't compare. As my vice chair said, our demographic on 150,000, 160,000 people. Don't compare 160 with 1 million people. I just came back from California, from Fairfield. There's more people in that little county than there is on Guam. It's over 300,000 people there. And they have a lot of taxes. And people say a lot of them are leaving California because they're going to where it's cheaper. But they're building a bunch of homes there. I've seen it myself. And that's what we're doing here in Guam. We're trying to build homes. We're trying to turn the government to bring public service. And this bill is specifically just to bring the vape industry, the end product, into the taxation. We don't want to burn the business out. Folks, a reminder, my slogan is, keep business in business because of the economy. If you want to tear down the business, just remember, costs will go up only because you force it. I can't get this. And if you want to shut down the vape industry, like they tried on the other bill, there's nothing stopping me from bringing that vape in my pocket when I fly from the States, and that liquid. There is nothing. I bring it into Guam, I'll start, and you'll be like, it's legal, I didn't buy it on Guam. What's the next excuse going to be? But with that, I just hope that the end results, and I know there's still others that want to speak for or against the bill. I welcome that. That's democracy. And I thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator San Agustin. So we're going to relieve this panel, and we're going to hear testimony for the next group. So we're going to call up the next round. Thank you. We are going to, if you are going to be here for 197, we'll probably hear that. We'll do a recess until 2:30. So if you want to come back for that one, but we're still on Bill 193. So I want to recognize anybody who hasn't testified that wants to testify on Bill 193. We do have a representative from Guam Department of Education. They will be providing written testimony at a later time. Thank you for your participation. Okay, so I'd like to recognize Ken Perez from Guam Department of Education. If you have any comments on Bill 193 in regards to regulating and taxation of ENDS products.
Well, the superintendent and myself, we are in support of your bill, especially the taxation, to support our our agencies, especially in regards to providing funds, especially for the education of them, and also funds to actually to provide the education of vaping and the use of it. And if anything, we appreciate your time and we appreciate you actually addressing this concern. We do have, actually I was piling up a whole bunch of confiscated vapes from the schools, and we do have quite a bit, and we just don't know where to dispose of it. So if anything, if the buyers would like to buy it back from us, that'll be really good. And thank you, Senator, and thank you, Senators, for having me here. I apologize for not introducing myself first.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, just state your name for the record.
Okay, sorry, thank you. My name is Ken Perez. I am the Deputy Superintendent, the new guy that came during the storm. So I am working with the Superintendent of Swanson, the big guy. So if anything, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer it.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. So we will ask questions afterwards, but we will want to move on to the testimonies. So you're recognized, Janice.
Hi, my name is Janus Mendiola. Thank you, Senators, for bringing this bill, and thank you for hearing me. I got some comments to make. First and foremost, I'm in support of Bill 19397. I'm going to kind of make this quick. It's in regards to the batteries. We've actually found 2 companies here in Guam that can deal with those batteries. Also off-island companies to handle all of the waste. Or even looking into receptacles for depositing expended ends products, and this will in turn result in the industry regulating itself to dispose of those items. So we can reach out and I'll help you out. As to some of the comments that I've heard, I can't help but I want to tell you that I've been in the legal field since 1993, served many of our judges here in the Superior and Supreme Court, and I have to tell you in regards to the issue of FDA pre-market tobacco applications, the FDA is currently in the 5th and 11th Circuit Courts dealing with being reprimanded by violating the Administrative Procedures Act. So when you've heard from Guam Behavioral Health in regards to there's only like 43 approved, because they have to deal with 6 million, and what they did is they unilaterally denied everybody and restarted the whole Center for Tobacco Products applications. That's where we're at with regards to the FDA and approved products. So in abeyance, the Supreme Court will be hearing these 6 cases because the 5th and 11th circuits are split, and the Supreme Court will probably hear the matter. It's also dependent on the FDA and the U.S. Surgeon General to review these, to take approach whether they file a writ of certiorari or not. In which case, any legislation going forward with regards to FDA-approved products would ultimately be undermined with regards to a pending Supreme Court decision or the actions of the FDA to remedy the Administrative Procedures Act violations. So, in fact, I'm very well aware with the FDA's procedures and policies in regards to unauthorized or illegal vape products. They do actually have a red alert list that is published under the FDA website, and I can provide that at a later time. It does say what products are seized without inspection in terms of any type of port of entry that when it comes in. So there's things in place, and then there's legislation pending in regards to it. And what I want to tell you is, with respect to these pending matters before our jurisprudence, our courts, to just take a gander if you want at it, and you know, if you want to get legal counsel involved, go ahead. But I just want to let you know that that's something that should be held off on with regards to any FDA actions, because they are going through a process to have to review these 6 million applications that were ultimately denied without review. There's even congressional oversight hearing right now that's going to be taking place this year amongst their own tumultuous agenda to deal with. In regards to it, there's a Reagan-Udall Foundation that was intended and funded to assist the FDA Center for Tobacco Products. It contained scientific data and studies from within the employees and the employee of the FDA that were omitted, and this is why there's congressional oversight to be heard in regards to the FDA's handling of applications that were just ultimately wiped out. They deleted it, and they're going through a review with the Senate right now, and pending. I believe they had to reschedule it because of the Border Patrol and other issues that, and impeachment, you know, they have their own full plate of things to deal with. So, you know, in regards to the bill, I fully support it because there have been incidents of one of my friends that told me that there was an adult who purchased in a vape store and walked out and took a couple puffs and then gave it to the kid in the back of the truck. And obviously it looked like a child in uniform, obviously. So I think the bill would actually address stuff like that, and, you know, and stop that abuse. I think we have existing laws that you can utilize to currently, and I believe a lot of the current law with regards to mandatory cessation, to enter into a mandatory cessation program, that's not being followed by GDOE. Okay, they're not actually sending them, and it's not mandatory, because kids actually just take a suspension and then they come back and reoffend. So there's no real actual enforcement with the existing law today. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ms. Masi. Okay, so now for questions. Thank you for that information. I appreciate that. So basically, just to reiterate, the pending, I guess, FDA denied, you said 6 million, what is it?
Over 6 million applications.
And so now it's being challenged in court?
All of it, all of it. In fact, some of the manufacturers that sue the FDA, and the most popular brand being that Altrio, what had happened was they went back to the FDA and says, you need to look at this again, and if you don't, we're going to sue you. And so consequently, the FDA says, no, we don't have to. We're done with this, all the applications. And that's where we're in a position to where the FDA had to take a different look at it, and they're only able to process like 10 applications a year right now, which is why we're up to 43.
Okay, thank you. So this question is for Department of Education. So, you know, my understanding is that it's voluntary. The cessation program is voluntary for minors that are caught using ENDS products or tobacco products. Is that true?
Well, we have a report here, but definitely the sensational workshop that they have for the students are actually voluntary that they can go to. Because most of the time, unless they're caught and then it's voluntold to go to the workshop.
Okay, so that seems to be a gap.
Right.
Is it something that needs to be put in law, or is it something that can be done administratively through board policy to require cessation? Or, yeah, I mean, is that the policy of DOE if minors are caught with nicotine products?
We offer that outlet for the cessation, the conference or the course for them to take because it's not going to be, we can't say we demand the student to go there because then it's within their rights to refuse. At the same time, we also want to educate them at the point that these are available. If we come across the students that we say, okay, these are the students that are coming up with the issues. In fact, like the possession of tobacco, which is like 469 count. Then, of course, we're going to ask them, well, these are the people that we want them to go. There was an issue because one of the parents refused to send their child there. So it came up and says, it's not forced. So it's actually offered to them to take the course.
So there was a question about criminalizing youth. So that, I mean, this is what the bill does.
Right.
It criminalizes youth. Do you support that? Because it seems like they're given the option. First of all, it's illegal. It's illegal to
in the schools
to consume
yes.
nicotine
right.
as a minor. Right. So, what do you think is the proper way to address that in the schools? Do we need to criminalize youth? What do we need to do to basically enforce this?
Well, already at the school level, we don't allow it. You know, we do not allow it. We, in fact, confiscate all their vapes and as well as their cigarettes and stuff because it's not allowed. But it doesn't stop them from doing it before school or before they can't come on campus because this is a no smoking, no drug area in our schools. To criminalize it, that would be actually up to the legislature. For us to do an SOP, and actually we have some in place that are to address those concerns. Actually confiscating it and then writing up the reports.
Yeah, I guess the policy question really, it's like, basically nicotine's highly addictive. And so you're basically, you're confiscating the product, but without addressing the root cause. And so I think, I guess my question is, what do you suggest do you think this policy is working, or what improvements needs to be made, whether administratively or in law?
I would believe it. For my own opinion, I would say yes. We should make it a law, if we can. If the senators can sit and says, we make this a law so we can abide to it, as well as hold everyone accountable if they don't abide.
Okay, make it a law to do what?
Oh, to also ban the use of nicotine, the ban the use of any drugs that are coming onto the campus. Am I getting?
Okay, so there is a drug-free zone?
Right, it's a drug-free zone.
So you're saying that we need to strengthen that?
It would be nice to strengthen that because it's not only, this is what I see. It's not only the use of it, it's the sale of it. So I've come across stories of students selling take a toke, it's $5, and they'll pass it on to the next one. And they'll say, take a toke, and they'll collect money for it. So it's a sell. So if we can confiscate that, we will confiscate it now. We have a huge volume of vapes and other stuff that's been contraband, that's been confiscated. But like they said, someone can buy it at the store and give it to the guy behind the young kid in the uniform for him to take to school. Well, that will be also a parent responsibility. The parent should be held responsible for teaching the child. Like he said, the whole village has to raise the child, or the student, we'll say. Am I for it?
Yes. Yeah, okay, thank you for those responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to open up to my colleagues for questions. Senator Taitague.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really have no questions for this panel. I thank you for being here to testify. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Senator Brown.
I don't have any questions either, Madam Chair. I think you both, thank you for coming. I think you both articulated your testimony well, so thank you very much. Are you calm now? You relaxed? It's a good day. The sun is shining. Thank you for providing your testimony. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Quinata. Senator San Agustin.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify? Okay, so then in that case, you can close.
Okay, well, I want to address the gentleman from DOE, because he's new on board at DOE, and I used to be on the Board of Education, okay? My concern is, what is DOE doing about when they catch a child in possession of tobacco or ends, the vape? What do? They just take it, confiscate it, and then offer them the cessation class? Is that what? That's all they do? Is that all the board policy that's written? You thought you were getting away with it.
I know. I just knew it. You know, former GPD, I can't get away from that. So anyway, they take it away. They call the parent. We have a procedure that's in place, all right, that we set with one of our divisions that control that. It's part of the DAC census. And what they do is they also offer the counseling to that student. Besides the sensation, there's also counseling that's going on. At the same time, after calling the parent in and saying, hey, your son has this, we don't surrender the item. We hold on that item, and we would love to bring it to someone to get rid of it because it's just taking so much space. Inohan Middle School has a huge, several filing cabinets on it. But that's what we do. We actually, and before we even call GPD, we actually call the parent first, because the parent should be in the loop, especially it's their child. And then we offer them some corrective measures. And sometimes they'll take the child home and they'll correct the child there. But we also put them in. There is a policy regards to suspension, and there's also a policy regards to corrective measure that's happening. So there is something.
Okay. No, the reason why, because you mentioned earlier, if there's some form of enforcement, and that was spoken about earlier, maybe what we need to do is put in the bill. If a minor's caught, automatically DOE needs to turn that over to GPD, law enforcement. That's not property you should be holding. It's something you have to dispose of. You know, the chain of custody of all, whatever evidence. But the same token, maybe that's what we need to put in the bill. It's something where if a minor's caught and it's determined that the product was from an adult, may it be the parent or the uncle or the friend that's an adult, then they be prosecuted for that. But at the same time, I'm not trying to put a child into prison, no. Go to community service. It was brought up earlier. Community service, and even for the adult, don't necessarily have to go to jail, no. We're going to put you out there, and you're going to start cleaning bus stops, start picking up trash. And I get an example is, how long is normally the sensation class? A couple days or just an hour or two?
That one I'm not too sure about, but I've been hearing it's like 2 days.
No, the reason why I was asking that, because when you go to a 2-day class, well, then that should be double the number of days that you're in community service. You see what I'm getting at? And they mentioned earlier, it's not necessary to go to the mayor's office to do community service. No, we assign you to an agency that does cleaning up of roads, which is DPW. It's hard to get away with that because why? You see them out on the road. And it's back to public works also when they clean up the bus stops. You know, and that's what I'm looking for, is that those are the kind of maybe amendments to the bill, so we can add that it's about fixing and preventing, you know, and communication and education. I mean, a very good example is maybe in somewhere in this bill, in some form, we can get the government to, other than just the Attorney General announcing about who he prosecuted or who he saved life, why don't we put up there, no vape, it's illegal, you know, don't smoke. It's like, don't drink. In the past, they used to park, cars that get in an accident and people die. Why aren't we doing that today? That's what surprises me. Yeah, it's pretty, and you're right, Senator Brown. But we need to bring up the people of Guam. The community needs to know. When you get in an accident, it only takes less than a second to die in an accident. Okay, and if somebody's, even maybe not necessarily a picture of a child, a cartoon showing the vape is illegal, and this is what you're going to do, and a picture of them picking up trash. I'll tell you what, kids are going to start saying, "I don't want to be picking up trash." Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I'm telling you that that's sometimes the only way to change the attitude of the community and the children. And if people want to question if I have kids, I have 3 kids and I have 11 grandchildren, so stop it. Does San Agustin have kids? I got kids. And all my grandchildren, they know the rules of engagement. They know it quite well. But with that, Madam Chair, thank you very much for hearing the bill. And I hope that we can sit down and go through the amendments as recommended by everyone, and let's come up with a good bill so we can move forward and bring it to the floor, and let's do what we need to do and take care and start recognizing that the ends is in business, and we need to tax them and send the money where it can do the best, have the best use for. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Masi, Senator San Agustin, and thank you to everyone that provided their testimony and their time today to provide testimony on Bill 193-37. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until 4 p.m. Monday, February 12, 2024. Please address all testimony to Senator Sabina Flores-Perez, Chairperson of the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, Statistics, Research, and Planning, which can be dropped off the mailboxes here at the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office@senatorperez.org. So now this bill has been duly heard. But we will recess till 2:30 to hear testimony on Bill 197-37. Senator Masi.
Thank you.